and get going. All right, says we are recording. Laura, I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Kendall. I would like to welcome everyone. I know that for some of you, this might be actually your first meeting in a while. So a special welcome to you. I would like to officially call us to order. And let's see here. I'm looking at a few different versions of the agenda. But yep, the first thing that we'll do is we will review and adopt the agenda. Would anyone like to move to adopt the agenda or comment to change it in any way?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there a second?
This is Barbara Love. I second it.
Thank you, Barbara. All those in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed to adopting the agenda? Say nay. I believe we have the agreement to adopt the agenda. Thank you very much. So now let's review and approve the minutes from our previous meeting. These were sent out, and thank you very much. I would like to remind everyone, reading the minutes as I did yesterday, I would like to remind everyone that if there are any discussion points, as there are many, in which you feel like sharing your opinion, but you would like to do so anonymously, you would like to not, pretty much anonymously, you are very welcome to message me through the chat feature directly, and I will share your comment, your suggestion, your question anonymously. I will do so. So just send me the direct message through chat, and I'll do that anonymously if you don't want to do it yourself. Okay.
And just as a little FYI thing, the future minutes will be shorter. Anna has been taking very meticulous, detailed minutes, which is great, except we also record these sessions and post them on the internet. So what we're going to do is we're going to include the timestamp in the recording that was posted for each of the main topic points in the agenda and each of the discussion topics. So if you see something in the agenda after the meeting and you want to either go back and review it or look at it for the first time, you'll know exactly where to jump to, or at least a pretty good approximation of where to jump to in the video posted on YouTube to watch the entire section. And if you do it on a computer, you can do it at 1.5 speed and hear us speaking really, really fast.
Thank you for that information and that advice, Kendall. That would tickle anyone's funny bone, I think. So remind me, we do have to officially approve the minutes with a vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the reminder. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes or any comment to amend them in any way? Melody moves that we approve the minutes. Thank you, Melody. Is there a second? And Stephanie seconds it. Thank you, Stephanie. All those in favor say aye. And if anyone would like to vote negative, you may vote nay. All right. I will claim that this is indeed affirmative. Thank you, everyone, for recording your vote. And I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa Williams as president of the RSA board.
All right. We had a board of directors meeting, and we elected new officers. I'm still the president, though, so Another year you get to hear from me. Our vice president is now Jenny Sevier from Peoria Public, and our treasurer secretary remained the same as well. That's Jackie Holmes. So we did that. We heard Kendall's report, which a lot of what you will hear today. We also discussed the Rails LSAP grant and how that will be changing our budget. Our next board meeting will be discussing our budget. Otherwise, the meeting theme was basically RSA moved, thus no other things happened. That is all I have.
Well, thank you, Alyssa. She's absolutely right. You folks are going to hear a lot of what the board heard on Tuesday. If anyone has any more detailed questions about what happened at the board meeting or anything like that, feel free to just ask when that topic comes up, or, you know, message Alyssa or me directly. We'll have a conversation. Okay, so is it time for our first interstitial poll?
It should be popped up. Oh, people are voting. So yes, it did. Now, one thing I learned from doing this is that when I do the end poll and then show the poll results, those do not get recorded for the video. So for those of you who are watching the video, right now the voting is running 23% Hardy Boys and 77% Nancy Drew, which does not surprise me in the least. All right, and it looks like 84% of people have voted, so that's probably as many as we're going to get. Let's see. Then I will do share results. Now you should be able to see the poll results. I'm going to take a screenshot. There we go. Use that for later.
Wonderful. Thank you for putting that together, Kendall. Okay, so moving on to committee reports. Once again, if you've got questions or would like some more information, just speak up or put something in the chat.
We were a little light on committee reports, committee meetings. In fact, I am shocked, or was kind of shocked, that Anna actually had the circulation committee on the 27th of May, because the 28th of May was basically the last day we had in the old office before moving, and we were running around like chickens with our heads cut off. So there are circ notes included as part of the package.
Excellent. Hearing no questions or additional requests for information, I think we'll just move on. And okay, so our discussion topic / let's get more information, or discussion topic A, I'm very pleased to welcome Jessica Barnes, Rails Special Projects Librarian. I'm sorry, I was about to call you a Special Librarian Project, but you're a Special Project Librarian. And we are going to learn a lot more about Explore More Illinois. Once again, if you have questions, please take the time now to ask. So let's turn it over to Jessica.
Do you need to share your screen, Jessica?
Yeah, could I go ahead and get, do I just hit share screen, or?
Oh, hold on. Yes, now you're a co-host. You should be able to now.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so hopefully you can see the Explore More Illinois homepage.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Laura and Kendall, for inviting me. Like Laura said, I'm Jessica Barnes, and I'm the Special Projects Librarian at Rails, and I head up the Explore More Illinois Museum Pass program. RSA has really great membership in Explore More Illinois. I think only 5 RSA libraries are left to join. So if you're one of those 5 and you're interested in joining Explore More Illinois, just let me know. Rails pays the cost for Explore More Illinois, so there's no cost to our member libraries. And what Explore More Illinois is a cultural and recreation pass program where your users can make reservations at attractions around the state. We started in April of 2019, but then with COVID, we shut down in March of 2020, and we only recently restarted in April of this year. So it's kind of like starting from scratch, really. If you look at our current attraction list, we do have 24 current attractions, and I'm in talks with about 10 other attractions right now. So I would check back weekly to see if we're adding any attractions. You can see that on the list, you can go directly to each museum or attraction. You can go to their homepage, and then I do have the town in Illinois where they're located. One thing that we're asking member libraries to do for us is to help us recruit attractions. If there's an attraction in your town that you think would be a great fit for Explore More Illinois, if you go to the For Libraries tab, we do have marketing tools, and we do have a it says Explore More Illinois letter to potential attractions template. You can open that up and just fill in the information in the template, and you can send it out to whether it's park districts, museums, historical homes, other places in your community that you think would be great fits for Explore More Illinois. Laura at Dunlap's been great sending out emails to potential attractions, and we've added several of them already. Sorry about that. Does anybody have any questions about Explore More Illinois? We're really trying hard to get more geographic diversity of our attractions around the state. So I just wanted to let everyone know that I am working on recruiting attractions in the RSA service area. So please be patient while we can try to make contacts in those areas.
Even while we're being patient, you still would like to know if we have suggestions, though, correct?
Absolutely. We have a list, me and my limited staff of places that we're trying to reach out to. So we're always adding to that master list and reaching out with phone calls and emails to those attractions. Absolutely.
I'll just echo what Jessica said about even if your community has like a really small historical society, just like a small house that's been turned into a museum in some way, and they might think, oh, we're really small, we're not like the big Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. Really, please, as a library representative, please go talk to that attraction and tell them about the benefits of Explore More Illinois. It doesn't cost the museum/attraction a thing. And it's
such great publicity for them, Laura.
Yeah.
And actually, this is like, I think even more important than like some of the larger museums that we tend to think of. This is such a great opportunity for some of those small like historical societies or small historical homes, places that you might not know about, but you know, I've learned so much just working on this project about all these like really great opportunities in Illinois. Some of the smaller places don't charge admission. So when I've talked with them, they think, oh, I can't participate because I can't give a discount. We found creative ways for all of these places to participate, whether it's giving away like pencils or postcards or like, you know, discounts at gift stores. There's all ways that we can find for these smaller attractions to participate. And that's been a really creative way for them to be able to be part of Explore More too.
Well, I am so pleased to hear that the vast majority of libraries in RSA are already participating.
I do think RSA is
Illinois.
the, like percentage-wise, has the best participation percentage of all the LSAPs. So I'm really, you know, that's been really great to work with RSA. And if you are one of those remaining libraries, please reach out to me. It's such an easy process to get you added. We have all the information for you. So really it's just like kind of turning on a switch on our software. We can get you added very, very quickly.
Well, excellent. Again, if anyone does have any questions, As Kendall said, the request from our users group, we had a couple different requests for people to want more information about Explore More Illinois. Thank you, Jessica, for putting your email address in the chat.
And also, under this information for libraries tab on the homepage, on our homepage, we do have a webinar. So if you do want to look through it and just get some more information, that it's an open Zoom. You don't need a password or anything, so you can just go there and get some more information that way too, when it's convenient for you.
Excellent. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. If any come up in the future, we will certainly direct them your way, Jessica.
Thanks.
But thank you very much for being
Sure,
here.
no problem. And I look forward to hearing from anybody if you have follow-up questions or concerns with me. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Okay, I think we'll move on to section 4, which is users group, the package. So Kendall, how about you walk us through what those discussion topics are, or questions and discussion?
Yeah, there's really not much to talk about today. Sometimes we have a bunch of things in here that we're not planning on discussing. Today, almost everything in the package is going to be discussed later.
Okay.
We have the typical new parameters list. There were a lot of item cat 4 and 5s added, which Erica will be talking about a little bit later.
Okay.
But if you are interested in those, I would take a look at that. And I think probably everybody should look at the list of the newest training videos on YouTube. It's not only the newest, but it's also ones we've posted kind of recently, in that it's basically, there are going to be videos posted to recent like holds and cert training. There's lots of shorter videos that are a little more targeted, and we're basically trying to put together a list of things for everybody to use as kind of refresher training or new staff training. So that's a pretty good list on there. And Anna is in the process of getting all of those videos updated and uploaded right now. There are a bunch there. The question was, where do you find the package? And I'll drop a link into the.
Thank you, Kendall.
Into board. I was trying to talk and computer, and that was not working.
I got it, Kendall.
Yeah, we both did it at the same time. So there you go. And all of the previous packages and notes and minutes going back years and years are all on that same page. So that's where we post them every time, as well as putting them in the emails that go out on the listserv.
Okay, so are we on discussion topic B already?
Yep.
We're just moving right along. Okay, so you've heard me and Kendall say a couple times that people have submitted topics, or people have mentioned topics. Just as a reminder, all of you as users group, we encourage you to submit either questions or discussion topics, or even problems that you're facing in some way. And then we as a group will discuss them at our next meeting. So please keep that in mind. We do want to hear from you. So one topic that has been mentioned a couple different times talks about the preferred username issues, and specifically when it applies to patrons who have recently transitioned or are transitioning with their gender and or identity. So a big question, yes, does anyone know why when we check mark the use preferred name box on workflows, it is not always staying checked anymore? And that is, thank you for whoever put this in, because this is something that is that we want workflows to work for us, and yet it's frustrating when it doesn't work. So as Kendall mentioned before, there's a large packet. Follow the link that he just put in there, and there's a workaround cheat sheet for that.
And I'll show you real quick.
Yes, thank you, Kendall.
Assuming I have done things correctly, you can now see workflows.
Yes.
All right, so I've pulled up a user. There's this checkbox here. It's called use preferred name. We talked about this at the last users group as well. If this checkbox is checked, the first name will be ignored and the preferred name will be used everywhere system-wide on notices, when they log in, all of that stuff, it will use the preferred name. So I added a preferred name and checked the box, but I have not clicked save yet. So I'm going to click save. So now that is saved. This is where the issue starts. If you click modify another user from this screen, or you go down to the bottom and maybe you would hit make more changes and then click modify a different user. If you do either one of those two actions, now you'll notice the box is checked. I have saved it. So I'm going to hit modify another user. And now just because we already know this one is checked, I'm just going to reopen it. You'll notice it's not checked anymore. If, however, so now when I hit save or modify a different user, this user is now no longer using the preferred name. That's when that happens. So I'm going to check it again. I'm going to hit save. Now, instead of hitting modify or make more changes, I'm going to close the window. Now, if I go back into modify user and open them back up, it's still checked. So basically, the workaround to this problem until it gets fixed is never try and do two people on the same wizard screen, right? So open up modify user, save it, close the wizard, reopen it to modify the next user, and the checkbox will always stay checked. This is part of the reason why it's happening randomly, because a lot of times you'll open it up, you'll do the modify user. People like to keep their workflows clean. They'll close the tab, right? Later on, they'll come and do another one. But if it just so happens that you do two in a row, that second user, that one checkbox will always be unchecked on every additional user that you do. So that is basically what the check sheet says. I just wanted to walk you through and show you as well. Oh, of course, all the buttons moved on me. Hold on a second. Share, there we go. So we wrote that up. This is, I believe, link number 4 on the users group package documents. I uploaded it as a single document so that you can just download that one document, print it out, and put it next to your search stations in case you want to remind people of that particular issue.
Thank you very much, Kendall. And thanks to your staff for creating the cheat sheet. Any other discussion that anyone would like to bring up regarding this? Let's see here.
This ended up being a multi-part. We had more than 2 questions. I was able to kind of put the multiples of questions into 2. Oh, I will say, by the way, if you use the form on the RSA website to suggest topics or things, if you are pointing out something and you use your name in there, if we know the answer, we'll answer you back and also put it on the agenda. Most of the questions came in anonymously, so I couldn't answer back when I was like, oh, I know the answer to this, but I can't answer you back because I don't know who sent it in. So if you do put your name on those and we figure out what's going on, we'll still add it to the agenda for the next meeting, but we'll work with you, prior to the meeting, and hopefully we can solve that particular thing, or maybe just give you the answer to the question that you had. But never feel like, oh, I have a question. I don't want to make it a discussion topic or ask it because it's a dumb question, right? There are so many people in RSA and so many new libraries. Every question we hear more than once, and it's always nice to discuss them as a group here. So
thank you for that reminder, Kendall. And you're right, this is another portion, another of kind of the same topic, another little yeah. Suddenly I need more caffeine, people, so that I can speak gooder. Regarding this particular question and what will be the standard protocol and all this, all I can say is for the libraries here who have not already adopted some kind of policy, I encourage you to do so. Not that I have, you know, a monopoly on the best wording for such a policy, but I encourage you to look into some wording for a policy for, you know, this would be part of your circulation policy on how, on what names you will accept, and or perhaps your policy will state we will have a legal name, but we will also use a preferred name if the person wants it. You know, just all I can say is I encourage you to have a policy so that you are consistent with your patrons who it might be as relatively simple as they really, really want to be called Bob. They don't want to be called Robert at all, ever. And a patron might be going through a gender or other identity transition. And that is, you know, that's a bit more complicated, but you still need to treat everyone equitably as much as possible. There you go. And thank you, Kendall, for mentioning that RSA has no specific policy on this issue. So. Okay, any other questions, comments? Here, we do have a question. How many people are actually using title?
I was just going to chime in with that and say I kind of tend to discourage it in things just because sometimes those additional fields affect the sorting in like the user search options. Like if you add a suffix, it affects how it sorts when you're doing a user search. And I don't know that title is used commonly enough for me to know how it displays really. In my experience, not many libraries enter title in workflows at all. And what I usually say in my trainings is, unless you have a patron who is going to yell at you for not referring to them as Reverend or something, I would just not. But
that's a really good
yeah,
that's a good attitude to have.
I mean, I'm also kind of pro evading the thing, because I mean, also you run into like, are you Miss, Mrs, or Ms? Like people have like, I mean, as Laura mentioned with the preferred name thing, like people change their names for a variety of reasons. People have strong preferences for title for reasons that are not necessarily connected to gender. And, it kind of makes sense to have an overarching practice that is applied kind of universally, because also, if you do have patrons who are transitioning or something, they don't necessarily want to be like singled out as like, we have this weird policy just about you.
Exactly.
It's kind of like, this is our name change policy, and we're going to try to make it easy, and address you as you want to be addressed. But for various reasons, we may also need to have if that's not the name that appears on your driver's license, we might need a record of that, like.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. I had a staff member yesterday ask me, because she saw the agenda and the discussion topics that were going to be going on today. And she said, oh, so if I had someone come in here, would I, and she gave the example, would I just cancel out their card and give a new one since they're kind of a new person? And I said, well, my first instinct is to say, no, just change their name on their card. And then I said, because we change other names, we, a last name, just names are changed for a variety of reasons. And my library has not adopted any type of set policy, but just in practice, that makes sense. I agree with Anna, names change for a variety of reasons. So any other question or comment? Thank you to Lori and Barbara for answering Elizabeth's question, and Michelle, thank you for answering. Okay, well, once again, if anyone has any serious concerns or questions, please feel free to reach out to RSA through the help desk. And I think we'll move on to our next interstitial poll. Thank you, Kendall. So, Kendall, I think you're muted. Are you talking?
Oh, there I go. I have 2 mute buttons, so sorry. I will consider your vote don't have things if you did not vote. So there you go. So having said that, we have basically 20 votes for we don't have things. So that would have been option number 2.
Ah, very telling. Thank you very much for everyone who participated in the poll. Kind of shows you're still with us. Okay, so I think we're moving on to section number 5, Common Core. And I will turn this over to Anna.
Okay, yeah, so the circulation policy subcommittee has been, our current project is basically sort of to go through our existing policies and kind of work backwards from the oldest. And sometimes something will happen, like a question about a specific policy to kind of float it to the top of our list sooner. But we're kind of trying to get our policies more increasingly up to date, because as you can see, this is a 2013 policy that has not been reviewed since then. And so the reciprocity policy is, oh, thank you. Okay. Yes, we did the middle school essay thing and included the Webster's dictionary of Webster's dictionary definition of reciprocity. And this is the current policy, which covers some questions, but not all questions. And we have come across a couple of instances in which the unspoken understanding of certain parts of it have differed between libraries. Like one of them, crucially, is if a library does not loan an item type, they cannot request that item type for their patrons. What does that mean if a library does not own the requested item type versus, So I am hoping this is going to be a policy that the policy subcommittee will be evaluating. I think we need to write out a lot of the unwritten rules. Those of you who have talked to me about policies know my stance that an unwritten rule is not really a rule. So we have to, if that's what we mean, then we need to write it out. And I just think that this policy is potentially contentious enough, and it governs so much of what we do. I think this is one that is kind of warrants being beefed up and explored. So before we dive into discussing it in, extensively in the subcommittee and cert committee, I mean, we've had a few, smaller discussions about it, but we do want to get the wider users group kind of vibe on this policy. How do you interpret it? And another kind of issue is sort of, I guess, where does the responsibility lie for identifying items that might or might not be in line with the reciprocity policy? Is it on the sending library? Like if the sending library decides to send something, then that's up to them. Or is it on the receiving library's responsibility to watch for incoming items and ensure that they adhere to your reciprocity policy? So those are some of the things that I would like to bring up to hopefully jumpstart some discussion about this. and then I'm going to attempt to do minimal soapboxing and listen. So. Bueller?
That's where you want us to talk.
Yes, please.
This is Lexi at Washington. Anna, as I'm sure you know, interpret it as we don't lend things that we don't borrow things that we specifically have a policy against lending, which for us is like new DVDs as an example. We don't lend new DVDs, so we don't borrow new DVDs, but anything else is fair game. I mean, like we borrow playaways from Morton, even though we don't have playaways in our collection. We don't have a specific policy against lending playaways. We just don't own them.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
And this is Jenny Severe at Peoria. I guess my question, and it may be totally stupid. Like we don't loan, like a lot of other people, new books. When I go to place a hold on someone else's, workflows keeps me from doing that. Does it? I at least I thought it did. So that's not automatic for other different item types.
Well, and the system, like kind of in like Lexi's example, like if you have a rule excluding one of your item types from holds, then there is something that the system can enforce. But if it's just we don't have something, the system is not going to be able to enforce because there are certain things. I'll let Kendall talk more about what the system can and can't do in that regard.
Lexi gets my playaways, even though she has no playaways to lend to me.
That is correct. Yes. So the way the system works on the automated reciprocity, if you do not lend, we'll use playaway. That's a good example because it's a single item type. It makes it easier, right? If my library does not have playaways, I do not have a rule in the hold map that says I'm not going to loan playaways because I don't have playaways. So any library that is willing to lend playaways is a valid target for patrons from my library to request them. On the other hand, if my library does have playaways and says I'm not going to loan them, when a patron tries to place a hold on another title record, or a staff member does the same thing, on another title record in the system where the item type playaway is attached to that title record, the system will say, oh, you don't loan playaways, you're local holds only, so we're not going to allow you to request this particular title on hold. Now, here's where the fun starts. That's great for playaways or, I don't know, magazine, right? Because it's a single item type. It starts to break down fairly quickly the more item types you are having potentially against a record. So book and new book is a great example, right? We have book, we have, I don't know, 20, 25 other book item types. We also have book new, we have new book J, we have new book YA, lots of new book things. If you don't loan new books, we have to then go through in the hold map and put every new book type as you're not loaning it, which does stop your patrons from borrowing those books from other libraries. It also stops your patron from borrowing valid requests because not all libraries use the item type new book the same way. So it might be a 5-year-old book that a library just got and they mark it as new book in their for their copy. When the patron goes to place a hold on that particular title, if it says new book and there's 100 titles on there and only one of them says new book, if you don't loan new books, that patron can't place a hold on that title. Now they could go to the very next title down in the list, which might all be book or a derivation of book with no book news, and then they could place that hold. So it is not in any way 100% all works in every case rule, number one. Number two, it is impossible for RSA to know what you don't have and then add hundreds of no hold rules for every library and then have to go in and remove those hundreds of no holds rules once you start getting that particular item type and using it. So basically, it's really only super effective on new books, new movies. Playaways is another example where it's more of a stop for the libraries that don't that have them that don't loan them versus the other way. So it's not as good as it could be, is what I'm saying.
So Kendall, I could put a help desk ticket in and say, make my playaways local use only. I'm not sending them to anyone because I'm tired of sharing with these libraries.
You could do that, and it would hurt both you and them.
Why would it hurt me?
Well, it would hurt you in that your patrons could not borrow a playaway from that you don't have that somebody else does. Because as soon as you say it's local holds only, now your patrons cannot borrow any playaways from any library but your library. So there is no good reciprocity methodology in our system because we allow you to catalog things differently. If we said every book that has been published in the last 6 months is book new and every other book in the system is just book, we could set that up.
This DVD item type, and you only have this one, and then it, yeah. I was going to say I'm going to break my no soapboxing rule and say that standardization would make this question a little bit easier from the system's perspective.
Yes, from my perspective, if we had 20 item types, I could make this work perfectly or very close to perfectly. From the patron's point of view. Now, from a library staff member point of view, using workflows, you can always say, override the hold and place it anyway, which we tell you not to do because that also means that any union listing library is also now, if you say override and place hold, the 5 union listing libraries in RSA are now valid targets and they will never know that you placed a hold and it's sitting on their item. That used to be a much bigger problem when we had 30, 40, 50 union listers. There are only 5 of them left, so it's not nearly the problem that it used to be. But when you say override and place holds, the system assumes you as a staff member know that that means that you just broke every hold rule in the system, and it says, well, we don't care what the rules are. That staff member said place the hold, so I'm going to place the hold. So if you would like to use override and place hold, please do it at a local level. Change the hold range to local if you're going to override. Otherwise, that's how not a lot of zombie holds, but several zombie holds get placed because a staff member overrides and says, just send me this thing. And the system goes, okay, but then nobody can actually fill it.
Well, and I think for the record, that would be the super secret hold override that most people don't have anyway. I don't think that's just the normal RSA override. I think the hold not allowed one. Okay, there's some stuff in the chat which I will kind of read just because it is interesting. We have a tiny library and we don't have a lot of things or money, and it would be nice for patrons to have access to something so that we can decide whether there's an audience for that sort of item. Then we can make the choice on whether we wish to, basically on whether we wish to purchase that item or not. And then another one that says, we're the same as Washington. We don't request new items for patrons because we don't loan them. But if a patron requests a new item through RSA CAD on a title we don't own and the library chooses to send it to us, we let the patron have it. It seems like a waste of everyone's time and effort to send it back once it's already been delivered. So that is something I will, okay, I've already broken my no soapboxing rule. I will say, considerations of like the realities of staff time of like how much checking, like, do you want to be put yourself in a position where you're checking the hold map before you send or receive an item, or like double checking to see what item type it is to make sure, like, I think if you get stuff in delivery and it's just a book, you're probably gonna assume it's fine. Like, do you want to be looking at new books and checking the publication date because it has a sticker, whereas different libraries have different new? It just, I don't know, take pity on your circ staff is what I'm saying, on your old receiving staff.
Anna, what question are you trying to answer? What information are you trying to gather before circ committee or
I
circ
guess sort of
policy
what is the current interpretation, and is there a consensus on what the interpretation should be? I guess in a way, specifically with regard to, I guess the two questions that I feel like are unanswered by the current policy are, what are the rules regarding item types that you maybe don't own at all? And then also the thing that is kind of, mentioned in here is, if an item comes to your library that doesn't meet your reciprocity policies, is it your library's responsibility to identify those items and send them back? Or is it the sending library's responsibility to decide whether they're okay with sending something out and then sending it out?
This is Jenny again. I think Victoria said it in the chat. It seems to me what I would try, I mean, I don't handle holds at my location now like I did when I worked at a branch of the library. But if something got to us that was not something we traditionally loan, but if it's there and waiting for a patron, it seems a waste of time and resources to send it back and not let the patron have it. I mean, kind of the whole idea that, I've been around long enough to remember when we didn't share items between libraries. So it seems kind of silly to have them come and then immediately get sent back just because of this, especially I don't feel like it happens all that long. Now, on the flip side, yes, if it comes up on my pick list and I choose not to send it, then I choose not to send it.
Anna, can you do a poll for both of those questions?
I'm thinking it's sounding from the discussion like there is not a unified enough standpoint. So I think I will be I'll probably send a poll to the whole membership, I think, because this discussion has at least kind of helped me narrow it down to sort of, I feel like kind of two questions is sort of the, what about item types you don't own? And then who decides whether they're, yeah. Oh, thank you, Beth, for saying it almost seems easier if every library just loaned everything in their collection.
Exactly.
I agree with
But I mean,
that.
that doesn't cover the if you don't own it part, though. So,
But you know what? Before I get a reputation for being mean, because I don't want to give Lexi my playaways, which is not entirely true. I was just using that as an easy example, because I do actually loan my new materials. So there. Yes, the whole point of being in a consortium is to share materials. And we all know how delighted our patrons are and how grateful we are that Peoria buys things that maybe only one of our patrons here want, but yet we can get it for them. And we all have had that experience where someone is thrilled that we could get some obscure title for them. So yeah, we should all just share everything.
well, and I mean, again, for minimal soapboxing, kind of on, I will say
you've reached maximum
I know,
soapboxing, Anna, so stop.
Okay.
I know. I mean, stop apologizing. You're already on the soapbox.
You do want to
own it.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I will point out that it is easy to frame this conversation as a one-way transaction of things from large libraries with big budgets flowing to small libraries with less budgets. But I mean, I will point out that a lot of kind of the interesting and sort of esoteric collections of like cake pans and fishing rods and things like that are often at small libraries. And it seems, I will just say, it seems to me kind of silly to have a policy that basically says, if you're the only library that owns this really cool thing, you're not allowed to send it to anyone else because they don't also have this really cool thing. So
well said.
And I mean, maybe that's general, a highly specific example when when more likely we're talking about things like video games or playaways. But fishing rods we probably shouldn't send through delivery for a variety of reasons. Those should maybe actually be local holds only. But you see what I mean is that maybe that there are often libraries who want to share more, but in some ways this policy is restricting both receiving and sending, I guess, in a way.
Would it help when when discussing this, even though it's in some ways it's a lot easier to keep a discussion simpler, would it actually help to include a definition or other helpful paragraph about local holds only? Specifically about local holds only, because that might help some libraries.
Mhm. Well, and the reminder that you can have a local holds only rule on certain things, like you can still have your fragile local history collection under local holds only, you know, that, yeah. Well, and someone is pointing out that Library of Things does, and also things like technology, equipment, hotspots are maybe kind of a different realm. And I think those are things where local holds only rules actually do make a lot of sense. So, okay, well, this gives me, I think, at least enough to make a survey, you know, and we'll do this as a membership-wide thing. I think that will be helpful, and we'll put in some free text forms, you know, that way we
This
can
last line about if an item comes to your library, I mean, we've all talked about, like, that's, I mean, that's just punishing the patron. Don't we want happy patrons? I mean, I think everyone can agree we want happy patrons.
Well, and that was why I brought up that specifically, kind of who bears the responsibility for deciding whether they're, it seems weird for a library to say, I'm willing to send you this, and have another library going, I'm not willing to receive it.
There was information in the chat, which I think got buried because there were some other good comments too, about if we could at minimum, and maybe this would be a good survey question, agree on what is our definition of new. Is new 3 weeks or 3 months? Is it 6 months? What is, could we, maybe if we had a RSA wide definition of new, that might help with some of these things that we don't know what new is, because somebody keeps it new for 6 months. Some people are small, and so they keep their new books for a year. So, you know.
Survey question: if we were to standardize new, what would it be? And I'll maybe just,
because I feel
1
like
month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, maybe.
Yeah, the new, I feel like the new items are the biggest challenge.
I think you're
with
right,
the
Alyssa.
Reciprocity.
Yeah. And it would probably, we'll probably need to have 2 different definitions of new, one for publics and one for schools.
Yeah.
Because
Fair
a lot
enough.
of schools,
Which
it's
that makes
new
sense.
the entire school year, and then they swap them at the end of the year. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to be a huge hindrance.
This is Jenny again, and Annie, I'm sure you know this, you worked with us, but the reason we changed, because we used to send our new stuff out, but we would have bestsellers that we would get them out to our branches, and they would immediately go to other libraries in the system who might have more aware staff members or patrons who place holds as soon as something comes out, and then our patrons were never even given the chance to browse, or then had to wait for holds for brand new items. So it's a responsibility to our taxpayers who pay for those materials. But that's that's really the only thing we limit is new books, and then our local history collection, which is fragile. But the taxpayer phrase had not come up, and that's where our responsibility is, to make sure that our regular patrons who place holds all the time are at the top of that holds list, rather than waiting for it to circulate through 150 other RSA libraries.
Right. Yeah, it's, yeah, and then someone's bringing up, you know, from the small library, you can't buy all the new bestsellers, so how are you going to be able to get them? Yeah, so there's it. I mean, the reason I've been dreading this policy is because it's a complicated policy that really does touch so much of what is central to the purpose of RSA. So,
and it does sort of require the scary S word of a standard.
But hey, maybe this thing, maybe new is our foot in the door of increased standardization of certain things. You know, it does sound like, I mean, I haven't heard anyone, you know, run screaming from the room at the mention of standardizing a new period. Although that's until we propose one that is, you know, not in line with what they want. But, you know, we'll get some feedback on that. So thank you. Oh yeah, and workflows, there's some chat about workflows prioritizing your patrons for your holds, and that is still how it is working, right? Just to confirm.
Yes,
In theory, yes.
once the book, now the problem where it doesn't quite work as well is if your patron, if you add a copy to a brand new title, no patrons have put holds on it, and someone else's patron puts a hold on it first, they're going to get it because none of your patrons have placed a hold against that title. But by the time that book comes back, or a week later, or a couple of days later even, if you just held on to it and didn't send it, once your patrons start placing your titles that you own on hold, your patrons have priority when your titles become available, whether it's in your library or at another library. So if you've sent your copy of a book out to another library, and then your patron is maybe number 15 on the holds list, but they're the first patron, the first one of your patrons on the list for your item, as soon as your item gets checked back in, the system will tell it to transit it from wherever it is back to you, assuming that another book has not been freed up someplace else and transited to go to your patron. So yes, your patrons do have priority over your items, but a lot of times that doesn't happen the very first time you put the item on a record, because your patrons may have placed holds against that item, but they're not on the record that you are attaching to. Again, it's all record based, right? So your patrons might have seen somebody else's on order record and put, you know, holds on that, and then you catalog your new item, but it didn't go on that on order record. It went on a different record. Now your patrons are waiting for titles that you don't own, right? Even though you have them and they could be available to fill to your patron, the hold has to be on the same title in the system that your item is attached to for your patron to get priority for your item. And yes, there are reasons for having different title records for the same appearing book. Catalogers could go down a big list of why those titles are different, but from the patron's point of view, they don't necessarily understand that.
I hope this has been a good discussion for you, Anna. As you just said, kind of quickly got a bit bigger, but good discussion. And
I anticipated that, and it was honestly what I was hoping for. So,
so okay. Do you feel comfortable moving on to Magic Minute? Oh boy.
Is this me again?
That's you. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So at the beginning of the shutdown, you know, we had a lot of libraries kind of contact us and say, hey, we want to be able to provide service to new users. We're closed, but we want to let them get ebooks. Or, you know, we're going to be doing some kind of online application just for that. So what we ended up doing at the time was just kind of encouraging libraries to use the CompUse user profile for those, and that allowed access to, you know, ADML and eRead. And then, you know, that way, since there was not in-building service at that time, any overlap between, you know, in-building CompUse profiles like Peoria uses for computer use only cards wasn't so much a concern, because we knew we'd be able to ID those later by, you know, the date they were added. So anyway, though, the question is, though, is your library still using CompUse for this type of profile, or do you have a need for an e-resource only profile? Because I'm basically, you know, I got a question from a library about this, and I kind of went back to what we'd said during COVID, but it was kind of like, well, you know, we had talked about revisiting this kind of once things reopen, so this seems like the time to revisit it. So do we need an e-resource only profile? Would you use it for your patrons? Is there interest in this?
And I think, if I remember correctly, but it was discussed quite a bit at the same time as the Cards for Kids, Cards for Vets program about having a e-resource only card for.
Yeah, and I am trying to find the
I don't remember exactly what it was.
Ticket, but because there is something in the admin code about it, which I am trying to pull up at the moment. So. I will find that, but feel free to discuss in the meantime.
They are. People are discussing.
In the chat. Oh, yes, I've scrolled up in my chat window, so I didn't see it.
And it's me again. I don't usually talk this much in a users group meeting. What is the benefit of the ebooks only profile? Because all I see is the arguments I'll have about people who think if they're only getting ebooks, they also don't ever need to come into the library to apply for that card, which.
Well, I mean, they're not going to be making off with your stuff, so who cares? I don't know. Sorry, that's me being my filter is off apparently.
We set ours for a limited time because we started it when they couldn't come to the library to get a card because we wouldn't let them in, and so it was set for a certain extension, and then we only issue it so long before they have to come get like a real card and do the regular application stuff.
I mean, I guess I will just throw this question out there of kind of like, if you have a patron whose primary interest in coming to the library is to have access to e-resources, they don't read physical books, they don't have an interest in that, but they're paying taxes, and so they don't want a full card. Why not? I guess is just the question I would ask.
If I had a patron in front of me saying that statement, I would say, okay, well, we're going to give you a full card, standard card, whatever phrase we want to use. And then you just don't have to use it. We won't make you check out a physical item. For the sake of our, to play devil's advocate, that's how I would answer that kind of statement.
Well, and I guess to the patron who's not in front of you, I guess is maybe the more applicable one, is a patron who, and I will throw out kind of the outreach scenario too, of maybe a patron with limited mobility who has trouble getting to the library, but would be interested in something like this, I guess, also.
My why not would be.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to go. My why not would be simplicity's sake. I mean, I already have dozens of pages of ops manual that's, if this thing happens, do this thing. But if it's this that's slightly different, you've got to do that thing. And there's much in the same way that we have 127 different new book types. I don't need 127 types of user profiles. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm a streamliner.
You can hide user profiles that you don't use, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, this I guess I should say this would not obligate your library to use this if you do not have a need. I guess it's more kind of is there sufficient need for us to create an additional user profile? I guess is really kind of the question. And part of this comes up, it is a section 3050.45 e-resources to non-residents, which says the Public Library Board of Trustees may annually take action to offer non-residents access to e-resources free of charge. So it's actually also about non-residents.
And I will tell you that if you issue your non-residents a non-resident card, they cannot use ADML or e-read because we specifically block the non-res user profiles.
So if you want to offer e-resources specifically to non-residents, then you
have to use a different profile or give them two cards essentially.
Wait.
Yeah.
You blocked the non-resident or the non-RSA?
Okay, so
non-resident pay me money.
No. Taxpayer ones The ones that charge $100 or $999 bill when you set that one
Okay.
up, those do work.
Those are
Okay.
full privilege.
Those are
I'd
full
I'd have
privilege
to be
cards,
according to the
yes.
admin code.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the non-RSA type cards where it's not again, because we only have the 5 union listing libraries left. This is less of an issue, but
Oh, no, it's
there's
an issue for me. I have Putnam County.
yeah, but those should be non-RSAs though, right?
Yes, they
Yeah,
are.
correct. And non-RSAs can't do it. And so most of RSA service area, if someone comes into your library who's not paying taxes to a particular library, they're probably going to get, and they're not, if they want to buy a card, you're going to give them a card that works. But if they just had a non-res card, like a non-RSA non-res card, they can't use ebooks.
Yeah, when they ask about it, I send them to Putnam County to at least get their login information and then tell them I can help you with it if you can't get it there. But I don't know what your login is.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing an overwhelming need for no one is chiming in saying I definitely need this and I would definitely use it, is what I'm seeing. So most of what I'm seeing is no, I don't feel like I need this in the chat. So okay, I guess that answers that question.
Fantastic. Let's see here. Let's talk about library hours. There's definitely been a bit of chatter in the last couple of weeks about some libraries are still not at their same level of hours, amount of hours as they were in February 2020, when so few of us even knew what the phrase COVID meant in February 2020. And so the conversation of just who has yet to go up to more hours, et cetera, et cetera. So this led into a bigger realization that when you do change your hours, there are actually so many locations where you as library representative, library director, library administrator need to update your hours. That is really, really appreciated to so many different humans on this planet. So please help your fellow human. Kendall, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So on the front page of the RSA website, there is a form that you can fill out. It is called Library Contact Information Update Form. And that if you change your hours or your days of the week or your phone number, or you've moved your entire library, you can tell us. When you send us that form, we update the library information link in RSA Cat. We then go and update RSA Cat Mobile so that it shows your correct information. We then update our backend that fills Blue Cloud Visibility, the link data project, and that also feeds into the Google Knowledge Graph eventually, not right away, but eventually if your hours get updated, they will, there's a chance that it'll get back and it'll update your Google hours if you didn't do so directly. Some libraries have put their hours on their notices or put messages about their hours on their notices, especially for COVID things. So if you change your hours and you know for a fact that you also have them on your notices, please mention that or send an email to the help desk and let us know, because we don't go and look at your notices when we update library hours, because most libraries don't have it on their notices. So you need to tell us if we need to do that. And I think it was Laura, yeah, it was Laura that sent in a non-anonymous form with a discussion topic to let everybody know that the new L2 update now shows library hours in L2. So directors can go in, log in as your director account, and then you can update your hours in L2 as well. RSA cannot do that for you. Of course, you need to update your hours on your local website and any organizations that you've told your hours to. So, but from my point of view, I am most worried about RSA Cat, RSA Cat Mobile, because those are the places where patrons are going to see your hours directly, and then also your notices. RSA staff, we do many times. We also update our help desk contact point for you. So, you know, if you close at 3 on a Tuesday and it's 5 o'clock, we're probably not going to try and call you because we figure there's not going to be anybody there. So.
Thank you very much, Kendall. And you're absolutely right. I did put in the suggestion for a discussion topic specifically regarding hours and L2, because I actually discovered when I was making some phone calls earlier this week, I was looking up some phone numbers for different libraries, and I couldn't find the hours, and I kept thinking that I was missing them in L2, and I was clicking different buttons and I was scrolling around. And finally, I emailed the L2 help desk, which is very helpful. And I encourage you to do so if you need assistance of any kind. And I said, what am I doing wrong? I can't find library hours for like 24 libraries that I'm looking up today. And their answer was, well, when L2 had the big merge, which happened a year ago, a year and a half ago, we all know that time means nothing anymore. Hours were one little bit of data that did not transfer over. They worked so hard to to transfer over pretty cleanly a huge amount of data, and hours, for whatever reason, were a little piece of data that just fell away, was not transferred over.
Likely because hours are formatted differently as people type. Unlike Google, which makes you enter them in 24-hour format with exactly 2-digit days of the week and on a separate line with a comma between. Hours in L2 were whoever typed it. They could have all been on one line. They could have been 10 a.m. to noon instead of 10.00 to 12.00. Yeah, hours are a horrible thing to try and normalize and export.
Thank you so much, local statistician. We appreciate your input. So in all seriousness, I encourage every single person on this call to just go on over to L2 and just see if your hours are there. That's how I found out that my library's hours weren't there. Oops. So I got to go do that. So yep, I got to do that. Any other comments on that? Put them in the chat. We'll answer them as we go. And I think, Anna, this is back to you.
Lucky me. Okay, so I'm assuming these are the next 2 slides, so I don't need to share screen. But so the circulation committee has actually, well, the policy subcommittee has drafted 3 policies. We kind of planned to have 1 for this, but we ended up with 3, not all connected. But we presented the additional 2 at the last circulation committee, and they were kind of like, well, those look good to us. Let's go ahead and, you know, recommend them. So we figured we'd bring them to y'all. And if the second 2, you go, this is new, I need more time to review, we're not ready to vote, that's totally fine. But the first one is the one that's going to be probably kind of a no-brainer. This is the printed patron PII policy, which we started talking about at the behest of the users group, which is basically kind of, we need a policy that says something about handling, you know, printed patron PII, basically, when it shows up and the various places it shows up, et cetera, et cetera. So basically in this policy, we just kind of, you know, we sort of listed out, you know, the various places you might find such information, just kind of as a reminder. And then just kind of said, like, do not use, you know, we kind of tried to nail down where, you know, you absolutely should not use username on checkout renewal or transit slips was what we settled on, because there's no need for them there. And then we said, if you're using hold wrappers, libraries should limit characters in the username and patron ID. And then the one we did kind of give you a little wiggle room on is on the available hold slips, because we realized that a lot of that when you have patron PII on an available hold slip, that is often for functional reasons because you are then contacting the patron to tell them about it. So you need their contact info. And if we told you you couldn't put it on a hold slip, it would probably be scrawled on a Post-it and stuck on the item anyway, or printed out in some other format. So we kind of felt like saying you can't put it on the hold slip was maybe a little bit silly because it was going to end up somewhere. But we did also just say these are for internal library use only. They shouldn't be given to the patron. They shouldn't be put in self-service holds areas, dispose of them securely, basically. So that's kind of the bulk of it. But we did also kind of say like, hey, you know, it appears on other things, store these securely, shred them when they're no longer needed, etc. So if there's any discussion, engage in such discussion now. And if there is no discussion and you like the look of this and would like to make a motion, then feel free. I don't think you could not put it on overdue and bill notices that you're mailing out. It's more if you're printing them to do shelf searching. And so the policy, the part of the policy that would cover the over printed notices would be the dispose of them securely part. You know, like a lot of libraries print overdue and bill notices and then double check their shelves. Those will include the patron name because, you know, the intent of those is to mail to the patron. So basically, if you are doing that and you're printing them and using them internally, shred, dispose of securely when you're done. Yeah, that's kind of that the paragraph right above where it says draft.
I hear a motion, I read a motion from Joel Shoemaker, and that's Joel Shoemaker, so we can put that in the minutes. Thank you very much. There is a second from Alyssa Williams. There is also a bit more discussion. I think I'm actually going to call for a vote on this. And the additional questions that I see might be more procedural questions. Barbara Tarbuck, I do see your question. And I'm going to, let's see. I guess I'll just encourage you to talk directly with RSA about, you know, procedural, how to do that. So, okay. And Barbara Love makes a really good point. So the motion that Joel Shoemaker has given is, the motion that he has made is to approve this draft as stated, as listed right here. It is on the screen. It was also in the packet. You can follow the link that Kendall gave us earlier. And this motion was seconded. So I am going to officially call for a vote. Please, please type or say aye if you approve. Okay, people, I guess, are already voting nay. I was going to ask for that second. If you would like to if you would like to disapprove, you may vote no or nay. And seriously, please do vote. If you are on this call, please vote.
One vote per library. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that reminder. One vote per library. Anna, are you keeping track of numbers or shall I?
I'm trying to, and if I had been smart, I would have set up this as a poll before the meeting because that would have been a good thing to do.
We can't be smart every day. Really, we can't. It's too much to ask of a human. Okay.
All right,
We're
let me do a quick tally here.
okay. Anna's going to count this up and we're doing this carefully because we legitimately do want to know what our users want. And again, if you or a representative from your library have not yet voted, please vote and please be cool. And only one vote per library, people. Be cool.
And those voting
Okay, I
nay,
have 7 nay votes.
those voting nay, if you could send your concerns to Anna, so I don't have to see them. Mostly because if you send them to me right now, I probably won't see them. My inbox is a disaster from being on vacation for a couple of weeks. Send them to Anna and we'll figure out what the issue is. There's probably a workaround.
And we have 22 ayes.
I would
23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 ayes, and now 8 nays, 9 nays, 29 ayes, 29 ayes and 9 nays by my count.
I agree with that count. So I will declare that this draft has been accepted. And I echo Kendall's comment. If you have concerns, please reach out to Anna and she and her team will help you. I think we're going to move on to what's our next? Our clean holds policy.
Clean holds policy. And if we want, we could discuss the policy and then push the vote to an online poll,
which is totally
in
fine.
the next week, if you would like to do that as well.
Yes. So sorry. I am going to bring up a question in chat. When does this go? When do any of these policies go into effect?
Let's say if adopted September 1st, does that sound reasonable to you, Kendall?
Yeah.
To make it a easy date and, you know, a clean number and give people time to ask questions.
That seems very reasonable.
Because we also need to resend out the instructions on all of the numerous places that you need to look for printed receipts in the system.
Thank you. Okay, clean holds policy.
Okay. Okay, so this policy kind of came out basically because we realized that that we didn't really have anything that officially said, hey, you should pull expired items from your hold shelf, just to kind of set that expectation that this is a thing that you should do. So this may be kind of a, you know, we tried to basically write down what we think libraries are already doing, and just that way it's kind of laid out somewhere. So when items have been sent to your library to fill a hold, expire on the hold shelf without having been checked out by the intended patron, they will appear on your clean hold shelf list. When these items expire, they're on a, you know, their status has changed, and then you should pull them and send them on to the next one, basically. And it's just kind of we expect that you check your Gmail account for the clean hold shelf list daily, and that, you know, and then we did include a little bit of a procedure for what happens if you go to your hold shelf and the item that is on your clean hold shelf list isn't there. We did include like a little bit of a suggestion for how to handle that situation. So does anyone have any questions or comments about this policy? It's pretty straightforward. This is kind of a policy that just didn't exist, in which we are attempting to mimic what we think is already happening, basically.
I think it was very well written.
Any
questions? I'm sorry, Kendall.
I was going to say the other thing to consider here is that the standard hold shelf timeout for public libraries is 10 days. We did change those for the libraries that asked for shorter timeouts. I think we also have increased the timeout for a couple of libraries as well, but that was mostly due to some very odd internal situations. But The way that the system works is you can either, the day you make it available is day 1, and on day 10, or if your library has picked 7 days, on day 7, it will appear on the clean hold shelf. Well, actually, it would be on day 8. It would appear on the clean hold shelf list. A while back, the last upgrade or two, the option to skip days you were closed was added to the system. Many libraries took advantage of that, especially those that had shorter loan periods. I think in one case, we have a public library that's doing only 5 days on the hold shelf. But because we're now able to exclude dates when your library is closed, that would actually be 5 days that your patron has the ability to pick up the hold, assuming that's what you want. So that's a long way of saying there are options on how long something sits on your hold shelf. And if you would like to discuss them and potentially change them, send an email to the help desk and we'll get a hold of you.
Barbara asks a good question in the chat.
The status is automatically changed to in transit. So if you were to discharge it, it would also be in transit. The only thing that could conceivably, I guess, maybe be an issue would be if you've let a long time pass between pulling the item, between receiving the clean hold shelf list and for some reason you didn't get to it for a couple of days. It might be worth discharging it in case the destination is no longer the same, like maybe there was a hold that has since been filled by another item and now it's just back to its home library. That would be the only time I would really say you probably need to discharge it again, would be if for some reason you're doing a hold list from a clean hold list from several days ago, or you find something on your hold shelf that you missed that actually expired multiple days ago. That would be my gut instinct. Yeah, and as Nick pointed out, getting the transit slip is sometimes nice to help you keep track of where you're labeling things to go to. So that might be a reason to discharge it, to get the slip.
Okay, so would anyone like to see their name in the minutes and make a motion to, oh, thank you, Melody, reading my mind. Melody moves that we adopt this policy on clean hold shelf, and Joel Shoemaker will second it.
Okay,
But
so we have the motion, but we were going to do an online vote on this. Is that right?
We can do either.
Or is this one kind of a no-brainer? I'm not seeing a lot of discussion. So if
I believe we're allowed to just adopt policies through the membership, through the users group.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say we can go ahead and vote here. Please record your vote. Aye.
Woo.
And if there are any nay votes, please go ahead and record those. Once again, please vote. I will declare that policy passed. Thank you very much, Anna, and your committee and your crew for taking the time to research and author that. Okay, so next policy to discuss, please.
Okay, so this one is maybe a little bit more complicated. So if this one you do want more review and such time, that is completely understandable. But basically with this one, we actually had a couple of different policies that kind of covered the same thing, but didn't really, neither one of them covered it sort of in its entirety, because we had an in-transit items policy and a lost in transit items policy. But the lost in transit items policy said some things that should be just in the in transit items policy. And the in transit items policy is more about monitoring your pending transits list, was what the existing policies were. So we kind of were looking at these as we were looking at policies to update and kind of went, well, this doesn't make sense. How about these being, you know, one master in transit items policy that covers all of the dimensions of transiting items. So we've created this, which covers like items in transit, you know, so we've got these items lost in transit. You know, if an item has been in transit for over this amount of time, here's how you should handle it. Could you go back up to the top slightly, Kendall?
Yeah.
Where we kind of offer some sort of definitions and procedural things. You know, when items are discharged, they will be in transit and sent to another library to fill a hold. Items are assumed to be on their way. You know, kind of the, yeah, it is kind of lost in transit. This thing's lost in translation. But, you know, basically, you know, kind of setting the assumption that if an item is in transit, then we expect it to actually be in transit. And if you're not actually sending it, charge it to the appropriate internal account, such as mending or no transit. You know, if you can't locate it, please mark the item as missing. Please, you know, monitor your pending transit lists. And then we get into items that are in transit, you know, for a hold. And then like, if they've been in transit for a hold for over 30 days, what should you do? If it's been in transit for shelving, what should you do? So some procedural things, but we basically kind of tried to combine the two existing policies in a more logical way and in a way that more fully answered the questions about transiting stuff, basically. So here, I will put a link, since this one is a bit longer, to this policy in the chat here. Oh, and someone did point out that the top of the policies, they say for review, and that is because they have not yet been adopted. Once, you know, now that 2 of them have been adopted, we will remove that wording and replace and remove the big draft watermark and, you know, post those to the site. But we will put a note in there about effective dates and such, and we'll send a listserv post about this. So. And we did define, you know, lost in transit, which is, you know, an item that is still checked out to a patron is not lost in transit. That is still the patron's problem. And, you know, everyone should check their shelves for it, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
This one might be good to vote on.
I'm thinking this might be a good candidate for an online vote because it is longer and more detailed. So.
Thank you again, Anna, and your committee and your crew for just taking the time to mesh, you know, 2 different documents together in a pretty cohesive way. So thank you again. And don't forget, when you do finish, if there are any, you know, updates or suggestions or anything like that, to put this on your new letterhead.
We had not moved yet when
yes,
when
yeah,
they
these were written, these were drafted before the move, but yes, thank you for reminding us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and yes, Bobby, we will probably be taking down the other in transit related policies should this one be approved, because this is kind of a big tent in transit items policy. That will eliminate the small umbrella in transit items policies, as it were.
Okay, so again, if you've got real concerns or questions, or even if you want some clarification on any of these policies, with the exception of the lien holds, which did successfully pass, please contact RSA, and Anna and her crew will talk to you.
So do we need, just so that I have it clear in my notes and know what we're doing, are we voting on online? Are we voting just on the draft in transit policy, or are we doing a second online vote on the printed patron PII one?
I am very tempted to say that the vote that we took a couple minutes ago did pass. Kendall, could you help me out here with any bylaws or anything else with our users group?
The bylaws are flexible enough that we can do whatever we want.
Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely.
So we did have a motion, we did vote, the motion passed. Now that does not mean that we can't have another motion to push it to an online vote for the full membership if we wanted to. Just to give people more time to see the printed patron one. The clean holds policy, it didn't seem like anybody had any issues with it. So
yeah, there was no discussion on clean holds. Well, and that was the reason I brought up the printed patron PII, is because there was a fair amount of discussion around that one.
I am very, I'm leaning very much towards leaving the printed patron PII policy and the vote as it is, because, and this is, I'm totally going on record saying this is to help our patrons. This is personally identifiable information, and this policy exists to help our patrons and protect their personally identifiable information. However, I do understand that the changes that are being required, the changes in workflows, the changes to our workflow, small letters, just staff workflow, I understand those are changes.
Well, and the concerns I'm seeing in the chat are that some people feel like they just didn't have time to review it. That it's not necessarily a reticence about the policy itself.
You do have a good point. Yeah. Well, Kendall, as you just said, do we have to have a vote on whether we're going to have a vote in the future? I'm seriously.
I feel like we have to have a motion to. I mean,
we just need, I think, a motion and a second to push it to an online vote for the entire membership.
Okay, we have a motion from Alyssa to move the question, and we're just talking about the printed patron PII policy. We're going to move that vote to an online vote so that we will have not only more time for every single RSA member to review this, but also hopefully a greater chance of all RSA members participating in the vote. And we have a second by Joel Shoemaker.
Right. Thank you.
And okay. Good discussion. So, okay, we are going to close this section. Let's see here. Let's talk about a YouTube playlist.
So
Kendall, Anna?
Yeah, like I mentioned in the package, there is a list of new and or soon to be posted YouTube links. We are going to make a specific playlist for a back to school type training for our school librarians. And again, item 4.3 has most of those links already. They're good for new staff members. They're good for refresher training. There are some complete trainings in there if you want to watch and skip around in those as well. But we are going to be publishing a playlist specifically for back to school, and we'll send that out to the school librarians. That part of we had talked about, well, maybe we should just send that out to everybody. And the genesis of that discussion just meant that we just beefed up what was in 4.3. So for schools, you will get an email with a link to a playlist with all of those items on it. And we'll probably put something together like that for the publics as well. But for now, all the things listed on 4.3 will cover that.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. So we are actually going to push up one of our agenda items. We are not going to take an interstitial poll. We are going to take a 5-minute break. That's what we're going to do. And then we're going to come back and do a poll. So please, folks, keep it to 5 minutes if at all possible. My phone says that it is 2:41. So let us be back in our chairs in front of our computers at 2:46. Please and thank you.
I'm going to pause the recording.
Thank you. Next interstitial poll. So Kendall, what are the results that you're seeing of your poll? Okay, thank you. I appreciate everyone's honesty. Okay, thanks for that. So we are going to go on to our discussion topic C. Let's see here. Patrons moving between library service areas. Oh boy. Yep, this is definitely a couple different things. So Anna or Kendall, do you mind doing the refresher here?
Well, let's see. I mean, this is another thing where kind of along the lines of the clean hold policy, there is kind of, while we have the reciprocal deletion form, we've got the schedule for deleting expired patron accounts policy, and we've got kind of the new patron policy. We just have this one line in the new patron policy that says libraries will address reciprocal patron deletions as soon as possible. So we kind of don't have a policy that says, when you get a new patron who lives in another place, complete this form, send it to, like that's kind of specifically about that. I don't know whether that just needs to be beefed up in the new patron policy or whether there needs to be a specific reciprocal, reciprocal deletion form or whatever it is. I don't know if we need a policy specifically about that or if we just need more information in an existing policy. But another thing that I think has come up is the format of sending the reciprocal deletion requests. Kind of the classic method was to fax the paper form. And now we kind of say you can email it to Gmail accounts. This is the form that Kendall is sharing. But I mean, one thing that I always encourage, like new library, when new libraries are coming online, because they have, they often have a lot of reciprocal, patrons from the same library, I'll encourage them to just reach out directly to that library to, maybe send them an Excel sheet or something like that with the relevant info. So do we need to expand our options as far as how you submit this? Should we create an Excel sheet with some nice headed columns for you to fill in? What do you think? It just seems like time to revisit, though, based on some of the questions we received. And yeah, and how do you deal with these forms? Looks like a lot of people in the chat are saying they just email.
That's
I'm tired
something-
of receiving mail from Peoria Public with deletions. Actual paper mail. That must be costing them a fortune.
So physical mailing is also something that is apparently happening. Good to know.
It's very weird and suspicious when our library receives a fax. We are immediately suspicious of it because we think it's a scam. That being said, I think we receive about 2 or 3 faxes a year regarding patron deletion. And I look at that and I say, how can this be easier than sending an email? Really? And then I go on with my day because I don't have, the extra time and energy to worry about other people. I personally like the idea of email, whether it's a form or just this simple information typed into the body of an email. However, something that you said earlier, Anna, should be taken into consideration. The current reciprocal borrower deletion, it looks like the current wording says RSA Gmail account.
It just says library Gmail account, I believe.
Okay, so library Gmail account.
Maybe it should say library email account though, because I guess it's not always Gmail.
See, that's the thing. And this is a question for everyone, so please do chime in with your answer. Would we like to see some kind of standardization with what email it's sent to? We can all easily find an email on L2 if L2 has been updated. However, we should all know that RSA assigns each of their libraries a Gmail address, and that Gmail address will not change unless extraordinary circumstances. That Gmail address will not change. However, we all know that not every single RSA library checks that Gmail on a regular basis, like a daily basis.
You hurt my heart when you say that.
I'm saying a truth.
Oh, I know it's true. The other thing I just want to mention, just to make sure everyone's clear on this, and I'm sure pretty much everybody on this Zoom already knows, but the reason we go through this form methodology and contacting the previous libraries, we don't want you editing the account that does not belong to your library. So rather than, oh, this patron moved to my library, I'll just change the owning library name, or, oh, they moved and I set up a new account for them, so I'll just delete the old account. The only thing you should ever do to a patron account that is not of your library is put like a cert note or a staff note or something like that on it. We don't want you going in and deleting them. Just bad juju can happen when that goes on. So that's why we have this policy and this form in the first place.
Joel and Barbara make a good point of using, of intentionally being vague, of embracing vagueness, and using phrases, contact the library, contact the home library, contacting the previous library, using a phrase like that. Vagueness can help us. Joel, I won't judge you if you fax my library. I'll just be suspicious, but there is no judgment.
And from the chat, it does sound like a lot of people are already kind of checking, with the library they're sending it to anyway. So to see, how they want it. So it does kind of it seems like just an ambiguous contact to the library might be the way to go, because it does encourage that kind of. And I mean, it sounds very simple to email it to someone. If someone does prefer to work on a paper form, though, and then they don't have a scanner, I don't know. But maybe if we do a couple of extra options, like it wouldn't be hard to set up an Excel file with some, headings for the info you need, that might be kind of helpful in addition to the other, I don't know.
Nick makes a really good point that it could be better to contact the library in 2 different formats. Nick points out that he has contacted libraries in 2 different ways. And thank you, Gina, for explaining that. Thank you. It's appreciative to know that that you won't buy carrier pigeons. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on deleting reciprocal borrowers? This whole topic. Any other comments on this? Good, next discussion topic. So I really do want some discussion on this. Someone is asking the question, we are looking for new ways to recruit library card holders. Where and how do you find new patrons? Really good question. Just really briefly, my library had twice before COVID hit, we were invited into a grade school's, like, I think it was like a parent night that happened a month into the school year. We were invited there, and we set up a little table, and we got a bunch of new library cards that way. That is awkward because we have not been invited back into that school district, but I will say that that worked really well for us. And Jenny shares that fun programs that draw people in, little free library flyers, school sign up or parents clubs. Yep. Thank you for sharing that, Jenny.
So my library dream was reached 3 years ago when the school district put library card as a school supply on the list.
Lovely.
So that brings people in. We also were at our local farmers market this summer, and that helps promote awareness.
May I ask, Alyssa, how did you successfully convince your school district? And is that for like every grade? Is that how is that? How did you do that?
It was part of when we have an intergovernmental agreement with them to provide cards. And so for all students in the district. So then I said, hey, can you put this on your school supply list? And they said, yes.
I think like a lot of people, we do community events. What's that? Sorry, my husband is having a simultaneous meeting. He just moved down here.
He's being recorded. It'll be fun.
Yeah, he'll love that. We did, what's that parking lot Halloween thing that some places do?
Oh, trunk and treat.
Yeah, whatever that thing. Our town does like a carnival kind of thing called Good Neighbor Days every year. During the nice months, we have like food trucks on the square every Thursday, and we're gonna have like a pop-up event there. It's just, it's people who don't normally come to the library might go there.
Nice. Nice. Barbara suggests in the chat a family read night with the local elementary school. That's a great idea, and that's truly really easy to do. It's not much. Your staff won't have to do like much programming for that. It can be as simple as encouraging people to come into the library and sit and read as a family unit. Very little programming or prep.
We've also done library, had a library table at like the entryway to Kroger during National Library Card Sign Up Month. And during National Library Card Sign Up Month, which is in September, for those who aren't aware. We've had like to bring a friend to the library to get a library card, and then you're entered into a drawing for some fancy free thing that we found in our back storage room that people think is great because we include some chocolate.
That is an incredible idea, Alyssa.
I guess I can leave now.
So wait, Alyssa, tell me again, what did you give out that you found in your back storage room?
I don't remember. It was a while
Okay.
ago, but you know, basically you have an incentive. If you bring a friend to sign up for a library card, you get entered into a drawing, and people will do anything for some free candy.
Yeah, this is all true.
And I think we found some random stuff when we were cleaning out the back storage room that we bundled in a basket. You put a nice little basket together. You go to the dollar store, you can get a nice little thing for $10, and people think it's awesome.
That is awesome. Let's see here. Big event, family read night, big event in the school gym, according to Barbara. That's good to hear. Families reading together. In the fall of 2017, pre-COVID times, with very little notice, my library partnered with the grade school that's kind of across the street from us for, it wasn't officially the family read night. Isn't there a date for that in September or October? It wasn't officially that, but anywho, we chose a date, and we agreed that the library would provide just like hot cocoa. I think it was in the month of October. And we were going to provide hot cocoa, and families could just come and gather and read, and it'll be cozy and all that stuff. We ran out of hot cocoa 2 times over. We had over 100 people in our building, and for our size building, that's just about drove us crazy. That was amazing. And so, yeah, absolutely amazing. Lexi does have a good point. If you are a district that covers a variety of school districts, yeah, that's a lot to coordinate. Yeah. Okay, any other comments, ideas, something that has worked well for you? So, okay, thank you very much, folks who have shared. And we're going to go on to, well, we've already taken our break and we have resumed recording, and we've got a next poll. That's fun.
There we go. That's more out of state than I thought.
Good answer, 26% of you. Good answer. What's a vacation? Really hard to tell these days. Good answer. Okay, so next topic. Big discussion. And once again, we do sincerely want people's opinions on this. What would be a good day? And Kendall, do you want to give a bit of a background on this?
Yeah, so typically when I look back over the years, the August meeting is the meeting that, unless RSA has done something controversial or has done an upgrade over the summer, this is typically the meeting where we have the least amount of RSA generated content for users group. Now today is going long, which is great because we're having lots of discussion about questions that you have asked us. But as far as RSA type information, August is typically the one where we have the least amount to share. And over the past couple of years, we've had comments now and then about, hey, maybe we should have some kind of all-day meeting in the fall. A couple of years ago, we talked about, well, maybe we should have a director's day in the fall. RSA Day in the spring has been very popular, but it might be better to do it in the fall rather than in late spring after we get done with summer reading. So there was some thought about, well, maybe we should talk about combining RSA Day with a users group meeting. There has been, we did do one ebook day a long time ago. Back when, oh, geez, that was a long time ago. That was when Alliance was still around and still heavily staffed.
We've done more than that.
Did we?
Did
Did we
another
do more
one.
than one? Okay.
The
I
ADML
remember doing
committee,
one.
We did one at Fond du Lac.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So we've done two of those. So there was some, we thought, well, maybe we could either have ebook day or incorporate ebooks into the day somehow or another. And so I know Alyssa and the RSA Day Committee are gonna, kind of noodle on this a little bit. RSA staff is noodling on it. What I don't want is, hey, Kendall, throw us a full day of RSA training and RSA events, because that's not gonna happen. Sorry. We just don't have the bandwidth to put together an entire day of training and RSA scheduled events. But if we have help from you guys and we only have to plan for maybe a couple of trainings and users group, as well as a bunch of other events that are going on at the same time, that is something that we can definitely support and buy lunch for and do that kind of thing. So basically what we're trying to find here are some ideas. What would you expect if we did it in the August, September-ish timeframe? What would be the best time of the month to actually do an all-day type event? And ideally, we would like to get 100, 200 people to attend. It's also kind of a sneaky stealth way to get people to attend a users group that have never attended one.
Well, now you gave your sneaky bit away. You
Oh,
admitted to your sneakiness.
Did I say the quiet part out loud?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we've got comments here in the chat. Again, please share your comments, even if they're, negative comments. We still want to hear them. So Rebecca does like the idea of keeping RSA Day in the spring and expanding into a full Director's Day in mid to late September. And comment here from Barbara that she loved RSA Day in March, but not the first working day of the month. So that's a fair comment. So and Lexi does want clarification. Is this in addition to RSA Day or taking the place of RSA Day? And I guess the quick answer, Lexi, is sure. Meaning,
could be
this
either.
This is why we want to have the discussion. Do some people really want to keep RSA Day as its own thing? It's been great. The last year was crazy, but we all might remember that last year was crazy. But in general, RSA Day in the spring, that's great. Do we want an additional thing? Do some people want only one thing, just one thing in the entire year? Just what is this? Another comment on the I like the idea of a Director's Day. That's some good comments on RSA Day. Is it does tend to be geared towards frontline staff or staff in general, but in the past there have been a lot of training from RSA or others for frontline staff, but to have a Director's Day, dedicated Director's Day in the fall,
It would focus on different things if we
Mhm.
did it as a director's day. And we would also need a lot of help from directors, because that is where that information is going to come from. You sharing with
Yeah.
each other, you saying, hey, could you try and go get this person to come and talk to us for, as a keynote speaker or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So there would be, no matter what we do, right? If it's RSA Day moving to the fall, then the RSA Day committee's got a lot of work to do. If it's, you know, okay, we're going to keep RSA Day in the spring and maybe expand out into a director's day, or, you know, directors half a day with something else in the morning, or, you know, however we want to do it, whatever we plan, that's going to take a whole nother group of people then, because it's something different now than RSA Day, to help plan. We would need a committee who could do a lot of that work for us. Because again, if you're relying on me to put together this day, me and my staff, yeah, that's going to be difficult for us. And especially if it's a director's day, because we don't know what you need. We would love to host, we would love to help, you know, make sure that that happens and that we can provide our piece of that and buy lunch for people. But, you know, as far as putting together a day's worth of activities and festivities for everybody, it needs to come from you guys, because that's how, you know, it makes sense, and it's the things that you need.
I was going to make a comment, but then I realized this meeting is being recorded, so I will refrain from my comment about what directors need.
Yeah, it's being recorded.
Is the chat recorded? Does that get posted?
I don't believe the chat we have not posted chat in the past. There, we have actually had questions from people who would say, hey, can you save the chat log off and post that as well? But we have not yet.
The one thing that I will share is that we have seen here in the chat the suggestion to have certain parts of any meeting available online. So that's a good suggestion. So that's something that whatever committee or you know, group of folks who start moving towards organizing whatever it is that's going to be organized, that's something that they'll take into consideration. Any other comments? Good, bad, otherwise?
So it sounds like the consensus is to still hold an RSA Day in the spring with the addition of a director's day in the fall. Because RSA Day committee, of which Anna is our liaison for RSA, and I am still chair of this committee, we'll start meeting again here to plan something for the spring of 2022.
A good question here, doing an online poll for this topic. That's,
yeah, we're going to need to, especially if
Yeah.
we're not combining it with RSA Day, then we're going to do an online poll and say, you know, if we did something like this, would you be interested in coming? And oh, by the way, what would be a good, you know, topic for this? And then if there is enough participation / interest in the event, then it's the next one that comes out will be who wants to be on this committee?
Yeah.
Who's going to make this happen?
I will. It's fine. I'll do it.
Don't make me start calling on people who have not been very vocal for their opinion. Okay, well, Kendall, there's definite interest in a director's day in the fall, sometime in the fall. And so however you see fit to take it from here, obviously some kind of online way to, again, gather information. But other than that.
Yep, I think we've got enough to move forward on it. That's for sure.
Excellent. What are we discussing next?
Speaking of directors, questions about new directors and or networking, or where to network and or mentoring with, new directors calling out of the blue and needing help, that kind of thing. So I combined a couple of questions together. And so here are a couple of questions just all smashed onto one screen.
Okay. So you're absolutely right. This is a lot of information. So once again, I'd really like some feedback. I'm actually going to ask the last question first, and then I'm going to work my way backwards. Are there library networking groups that are not the rural directors or the long distance librarians groups? We know that those two exist. Are there any others?
Yes.
Thank you, Alyssa. Remind us what the others are.
Well, there's the Peoria area
Yep.
library networking group.
There's Rogue Librarians, Rogue Renegade.
Renegade Reference.
There we go.
Renegade Reference.
I mean, there are some
That's one.
directors who attend, but that's primarily information reference desk librarians who
Yeah.
attend that.
Used to be a Tri-County. Oh, Ann got it, Tri-County.
Yeah.
So Anne, just to confirm, this is a group that hasn't gone defunct or anything like that. This is really helpful. Please speak up, folks. Who else are we forgetting? Who else have we?
Rails
Laura?
website has the list of existing networking groups that they know about. And I think all of the ones in our area, at least the major ones that, are kind of open to everybody. I think those actually all are, now that Beth mentions it, I think those are actually out on the Rails.
And the Rails director listserv is also a very good resource.
Oh, of course. Yeah. In total normal times, it is super helpful to have networking in-person events. And I know that plenty of groups are meeting in person now. We all don't know how that's going to change in the future. But okay, let's go to the kind of the earlier part of this discussion.
So I can help a little bit on the first line. So there was discussion of creating a new director binder to help incoming libraries. Yes, we did talk about that. Oh, I don't remember when. It hasn't been that long ago. And I think at one point in time, we actually had a page on our website that was kind of set up to do that. And then it went away because it was horribly out of date. It is on, I believe, Tony's plan of things to do on the new website. So that is something that we are still looking at. As far as binders and sending them out to people, that's probably not what we want, but we are looking at actually setting up a page of not just for new directors, but like links for directors and those types of things.
Stephanie makes a really good point in chat that there really are a lot of resources out there. Alyssa even and others are reminding us of Rails resources. And of course, RSA is not looking to absolutely duplicate what Rails does. But Stephanie makes a good point that sometimes this can be a bit overwhelming as a new director. It's hard to know what would really help a new director. Would it help to be with some type of, just new director support group, which would most likely meet virtually, as this would be like an RSA wide new director group? Would that help? Would that be too much? I'm not sure what would really help folks. And so if you are relatively new, or if you've got a really good memory and can remember back to when you were relatively new, what would have helped you? What did help you that you think is gone now from RSA? And Melissa, you are still sort of new. You're right. You are. So what's going to help you? We're going to pick on you, Melissa, as vice chair. What's going to help you?
When I started, I didn't know the difference between Rails and RSA. So just a simple, definitive dictionary of all of the acronyms and letters and things, that would be super helpful. And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And then, you know, having a good point of contact. I'm very lucky and fortunate in that, Laura, you have kind of taken me under your wing and helped me out, and Mary and Alyssa and Joel and everyone around here has been super helpful. But I know that that can be more difficult for some folks that are in a little bit more isolated areas. So I think having an assigned buddy or just like, hey, check in with this person, they're new, don't forget, that would be helpful too.
So go ahead, Kendall.
I was going to say, I'm seeing lots of mentor things mentioned in the listserv, and mentorship is one of the things that is in the RSA strategic plan, not as something that RSA staff necessarily would set up, but that's something RSA in general, the wider RSA, agreed that that was something that we wanted to get back to, was some kind of more formalized mentoring program.
I think you need a buddy. You need to be assigned a buddy.
Yeah.
Like at camp, you're the new person and this is your buddy. Mentor has a lot of connotations to it, but like if you need a buddy, you know, could all take turns being someone's buddy.
Some of the things, the resources that I've found are very helpful. I also don't know where they came from or how current they are. I have this really awesome library budget cycle that I use religiously and have like given this to multiple trustees, but I don't think, like, it's older and I'm not sure.
I have that too. I know what workshop that came from.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from, but it's very helpful. So just you know, making sure those things are updated and available, like, hey, here's where you can find the things that talk about Phil and Zini's calendar or something to that effect.
So Kendall, as you said before, we're getting a lot of positive comments about some type of mentor program. Is this something that RSA could try to structure, and then in a perfect world, it would be relatively self-perpetuating?
I think probably the easiest way to do that would be to send out a survey and say, hey, if you're willing to be a buddy, not a mentor, a buddy.
Okay.
Good point, Alyssa. Please send me an email to remind me of that, because that is a great thing. Or Anna, take a note. Somebody highlight that, because I do like the word buddy much better than mentor, because it is a completely different connotation. And in this situation, it might make things a little easier. But we can send out a survey and say, hey, if you are willing to be a buddy for somebody, please, you know, answer yes and give us your contact information on here. And then we can put together a little page on our website, and then of course send that link out to everybody and say, hey, you know, here are all the people who have volunteered that said, hey, if you need a buddy, contact one of these people. And then now the hard part is going to be, once we have published a list of who wants to be a buddy, we're not going to know, like Alyssa might be 15 people's buddies and somebody else might have no buddies. So for lack of a better word. So, I mean, that part will be a little harder to figure out, but I think initially up front, we can at least publish a list of all the people who said, if you have a question, feel free to call me, kind of thing. And if nothing else, that gives you several people that you can cold call.
That could work. Well, I like that. Okay, any other questions, concerns, comments on this topic of new directors and helping new directors? Rebecca does make a really good point in the chat. I hope Kendall or Anna noticed that. This might be a larger conversation, Kendall, regarding RSA, or maybe it's a users group thing. Maybe RSA wants to like assign it to users group somehow. that they do the pairing up of the buddies so that we avoid what you just described, one buddy getting 15 little buddies and other available buddies getting none. So anyway.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think that's something we can keep up with, but we'll start with step one of just getting the people who are willing to be the buddies, and then we'll see where that goes from there. And then that is something that maybe we could assign off to a little committee or a group of people to say, hey, what would be the best way of breaking all these things up? If we want to say, if you're in library X, call this person, or you're in library Y, call that person. Otherwise, just rotate yourself through the list when you make calls or something.
Yeah. Okay, good plan. So I think we are on to section 7, cataloging. I'm sorry, bib framing. Erica, would you like to walk us through this section?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Hopefully you can hear me. Let's see here. I am a host, so I should be able to share my screen, correct, Kendall?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
It should bump me when you do it.
Let me shift a couple things around. Let's see. We did a monitor switch on my computer the other day as I worked here in the office, so bear with me here. Okay, I'm thinking you're seeing the wrong screen here. Let me double check.
We are seeing your notes, it looks like.
The Word doc. Okay.
Yep.
How about now?
Now we're seeing your screen, yes.
Okay. Let me go ahead and start this. All right. Okay. Yes. So as Laura mentioned, just a few updates from the RSA cataloging department. The first thing, our restructuring project, we started this, we first started talking about it last December. The first phase of it happened in January on our original timeline. We made some changes to cataloging requests that you, our members, are submitting to us. We eliminated the fax submission method that caused a lot of blurry, unreadable images. We stopped submissions for certain records where the description, it's not perfect, but it's good enough for search and comprehension. We had to do a little shifting due to the move that popped up unexpectedly. So we, excuse me, we switched phases 2 and 3. We did phase 3 first because we were bumping up against the original July 1st deadline for the cataloging request forms that Rails hosted. Thank you, Kendall. He got a generous extension from Rails. Again, due to the move popping up, but due to Kendall's help, we got those new forms up and going by the extended July 16th deadline. Right now, I'm taking another look at the OCLC connection training curriculum. This was for what we used to do several years ago, but training members how to use the OCLC connection program to search for bibliographic records and workflows that don't already have matches in workflows. So you need to bring in the bib record for your item. We're trying to rethink the curriculum for that, the requirements, what we teach, and then also too some expectations after you've done the training. And the idea is we'll have a good core group of members. Many of your libraries already use Connection, which is great. We just want to maintain a core of libraries that are using the Connection program to get good quality cataloging and not revert us back to the wild, wild west as it was several years ago when we were training lots of libraries on Connection that unfortunately didn't have the staff or the time to use it consistently. And then that resulted in struggles when it was time to use it, and a struggle then results in a messy database.
So anyways, that is the current priority, though, that we're working on is revamping the OCLC connection training curriculum. We would like to get that started this fall. That may just be a beta workshop that we get some willing libraries to participate in, knowing that it's not a perfect finalized product. I'll talk a little bit more in a bit, but we'd like to have a cataloging roundtable in the coming weeks that talks about some more specifics with the OCLC connection. We know this has been a hot topic with some of our members wanting to do this. So we truly are trying to rework it in a way that works well for you and for us. And then as we start to get towards the end of this year, I know we've mentioned off and on over the past several months that the Cataloging Maintenance Center, the CMC, the state agency that works through the Heartland library system, they're going to help us process some of the many cataloging requests that are in our backlog that many of you submitted that are on bib records that allow the items to check out and fill holds, but they need to be revisited for more complete cataloging. So the CMC is still going to be a valuable partner in the backlog cleanup, hopefully starting by the end of this year. And then we're bumping back a little bit. I know we had talked about standards for RSA libraries that catalog at what we call an advanced level. So that means you're out in OCLC, maybe you're making edits to the master copy of the bib record there, maybe you're really significantly improving records in OCLC, maybe you're making new originals. We know we have a small group of members that do this. It's certainly not an expectation from RSA that you do this, but we do know a couple of our larger libraries, Peoria, Quincy, Normal, they have technical services departments where staff are able to do these things. So we'd like to try and make sure all of us, including the cataloging team here at RSA, we're on the same page when it comes to making good records that work well in our database and our online catalog. Okay, before we talk a little bit more about the new request forms, let me flip back. Did anybody have a question about where we are with the restructuring project? Okay, the best way to stay informed is the listserv. And like I said, we really do want to do a roundtable in the coming weeks so that we can get some more details out about that connection training. Okay, you might have seen a couple listserv posts in mid-July from Kendall announcing that those new cataloging request forms are up and running. They live here at this link. We're hoping that they're easier to use. We created them by the item format because we know with our former request form, it was quite long, it was unwieldy, and there were lots of questions there that maybe didn't pertain to your format of item. So we are asking for any feedback, positive or negative, to please share with us. We've had a couple libraries reach out and share questions, maybe possible bugs. So certainly keep all of that valuable information coming because we know we're still in the early stages with this. We know that we'll do an iterative process of making tweaks to it. We're hoping we can do the first round of tweaks sometime next month. Stay tuned. But we are also going to be putting together a survey to post on the listserv because we know that we only reach a certain number of you if we talk about it at a meeting like this or at a database meeting. So we'd like to put together the survey, not just to reach more people, but we really do, as Kendall mentioned in some of the other parts of this meeting, we really want honest feedback, and we want to make sure we give you the option to be anonymous as well, because I know that sometimes relieves the pressure when you're being asked to evaluate and share feedback. Any questions at this point about the new cataloging request forms. Mostly I was just hoping that each of the directors and managers in this meeting, you could pass along to your cataloging staff that we are very interested in their feedback. Okay, just a rundown of some of the cataloging events coming up in the next several months. We did restart the basic workflows cataloging workshops in July. I know Lisa had a good full house with that, and I know Rhonda with hers coming up later this month. I know she's got several registered too. So we know there's interest in this basic workflows cataloging workshop. They're scheduled monthly through December. They are on L2, and then certainly watch the RSA listserv for invitations as we get closer to each of those workshops. I know that the member services office hours, I think those have sunset, but after talking it over, Kendall and I thought we'd continue the cataloging virtual office hours at this point. We usually do get at least a couple of you members dropping in either to ask questions or just to lurk and see what others ask. So we'll see if we continue to get a steady trickle of members coming. So at this point, the plan is we do them quarterly. So our next office hours will be sometime next month. The date isn't set yet on L2, but stay tuned. As I mentioned a couple times already earlier in this update, we would like to do a cataloging roundtable in the coming weeks with a focus on the OCLC connection client. The training restart, just because there's more specifics we'd like to talk through before we actually start to offer it to our members. So be on the lookout for that this fall. The next database committee meeting will be later next month, Thursday, September 23rd at 1 p.m. We don't have it on L2 yet, but the date is saved on our calendars here, so we should avoid double booking. And then I know also the Technical Services Networking Group, Heidi Ray, the Technical Services Librarian at the Alpha Park Public Library District. She's done a great job restarting this group. They met a couple times earlier this year. I think the plan for that group is to also meet sometime this fall. We will not try to combine a database committee meeting and a Tech Services Networking Group meeting. That was way too much in one meeting. So we will be doing separate meetings for those. At this point, we're planning on all of these events hosted virtually on Zoom, just like this event. And then we're just waiting to see what the Rails policy is regarding in-person events before we move forward with what we're doing on our end. Is there anything else, Kendall, we're considering as we think about in-person events? I know the Rails policy is a big one, but I didn't know if there was anything else.
Yeah, the other one would be that if it's more than 12 people, we need a host for it.
Oh, yes, definitely. How quickly I've already forgotten. This is only maybe the 6th or 7th time I've been in this building, maybe not even that much, 4th or 5th time. So yes, we no longer have a meeting room large enough at our new office to accommodate an in-person meeting. So yes, we will be looking for a willing host when the time comes and it's safe for us to do an in-person meeting again. I know with the database committee, there was quite a bit of interest in having both the online and the in-person. So we'll probably have both formats once it's safe to do that again. Any questions about cataloging events? I think I've got just a couple other things to tell you. Okay, yes. I'm encouraged by the discussion about standardization earlier, wanting to get some more consistency. There's been quite a few incoming requests lately for item categories 4 and 5. Remember the category 4 that powers the genre search facet in the RSA CAT. So it's one of those little check boxes on the left side of the screen that you and your patrons can use to drill down your initial search results. Usually it's things like mystery, romance. The category 5s also have been getting quite a bit of requests this summer. The category 5s, those are the subgenre facet in the RSA CAT. So another checkbox on the left side of the screen to narrow results. The subgenre is, well, most often it's things like movie ratings, accelerated reader levels, maybe it's an award winner like a Caldecott. But as you can see by these numbers Kendall ran earlier this month, the total number of system codes for both of these, it's mushrooming. We really need to think about trying to narrow it down, and at this point just get some tighter criteria for when we make these. The good news is that most of the codes we've created, they are being assigned to items in our members' collection. So that's good. Nobody's requesting something and not using it at all. But many of the items assigned these codes, they're what I call onesies, twosies. So they're just assigned to a couple items in a library's collection. And that unfortunately isn't very helpful because there's probably more items in your collection that fit that genre, subgenre. They just haven't been assigned that code. And it's also tricky if you're trying to pull reports or statistics based off of these category 4s and 5s to try and determine collection makeup, maybe to see purchasing trends for certain genres. So it really is tricky, both for you, the staff, and then also for patrons, having such an unwieldy number to search in the catalog. Yeah, that's a good question, Bobby. Yeah, we didn't drill deeper in the reports we ran earlier this week, but I'm thinking, and Kendall chime in if this isn't true, but we should be able to generate a list in Blue Cloud Analytics, shouldn't we, of item category 4 and 5 codes that are not being used by anyone?
It's you can't report on something that's not there, but we can report on what is there and then draw the conclusion on what is not there.
Okay, so we'd have to do some reconciling, but
yes.
No, it could be done.
I can do it in Excel. I just have to run a report in BCA and then a report in workflows and then
do some
do a
comparison.
lookup table in Excel, and I can make it happen. But we can remove them if they're not being used, but as you can see, most of them are being used. So it's not that we're adding them and they're not being used. It's just that we're adding them, but we've gotten, I mean, it's down to the point where people are requesting things like, I don't know, dill pickles. And then on the next line down, they want, you know, sliced pickles, or what's another kind of pickle? Spicy pickles. You know, we're getting very, very specific on some of these. And from the patron point of view, you know, pulling up a list of all of your genres and subgenres and seeing 300 of them does not really help them.
Especially since our upcoming upgrade, I know it was pushed back, but the upcoming upgrade for RSA CAT, isn't it supposed to fix that glitch, Kendall, where once we do this upgrade, my understanding is you search your library's profile just like you normally would in RSA CAT, and then it's supposed to scope correctly the category 4s and 5s, genres, subgenres you've assigned. So you won't have to do that weird workaround where it's like, okay, I searched, but it outputs everything. So now I need to pick my library again. So to me, that's another reason that we can think about trying to help you, if you're willing, to take a look at what you're assigning, because it will become even more useful in the RSA CAT once that glitch is fixed. Yeah, Elizabeth at Henry in the chat. Yeah, she does make a good point that when we initially rolled out these item category 4 and 5 codes, it was back in 2013. So we've reached our 8th birthday with these codes. I admit I didn't really have a good idea of their purpose at the time. So it is very possible that during training, you know, staff were getting the impression from from how I was describing them that, oh, every item needs one of these, even if it's just a couple items in my collection. That are maybe about pickles. They need to have the pickles code, even if I just have a couple pickle books. So no, I fully accept at least partial responsibility for some of the onesie twosies. Yeah, let me see what Barbara from HA Pine says. It'd be helpful if choosing one's library in the first item in the BCA report generator, and then made all the variables limited to the ones. Oh yeah, that's an interesting idea.
But
Maybe
it doesn't, that's not how BCA works, unfortunately.
yeah, that'd be nice though if it could customize though when you log into BCA, that kind of like in workflows, you just see in your drop-down menu what you've picked. Yeah, well, that's a good idea, but it sounds like it's a no-go. Yeah, okay, good. Elizabeth says that they reworked what they were doing and she has a list of approved codes. Okay. Yeah, so I think we should, at least in the meantime, as we get new code suggestions, I think we should create sparingly, to use Kendall's phrase, if we need to fill a gaping hole in our 600 and 700 code lists. And then we also want to make sure that you're asking for codes that are going to be assigned to items in your collection that I call a crowd. So at least several items. I don't have a specific number at this point, but a sizable number of items in your collection, not the onesie twosies where it really isn't going to be helpful for you or your patrons. I'd like to start this as soon as tomorrow, but I wanted to ask the group about this, if we could really start to get criteria in place that's more selective when we create these. But if tomorrow is too ambitious, certainly tell me. I just know that with the rate of these coming in, we really need to change how we're creating these as soon as possible to stop the mushroom from growing even further. Yeah, Rhonda has a good point there. Yeah. If you do want to do some cleanup, I plan to discuss some cleanup strategies for these during the database meeting in September. But part of that cleanup is getting some codes removed from your category 4 and 5 menus and workflows if you don't plan to use them. And that's something that if you email the help desk, Rhonda is our point of contact for that. Yeah. And just remember, and this is something that I know certainly was not emphasized enough when I first started pitching these to you, our membership back in 2013. These 4s and 5s, they do not replace the subject and the genre headings that's in the bibliographic record. They also don't replace subject and keyword searching, both in workflows and the RSA CAT. I know some of our members, especially some of the newer libraries that have joined within the past couple years, I can tell there's this pressure that these codes, that they need to, be everything, because that's how it's going to be searchable if it's not title or author. No, remember, if it's a good OCLC record, it will have subject genre headings that can be searched keyword or subject wise. Yeah, and like we've talked about, too many codes, it's not good for both you as staff and your patrons as well. So this is something that we need to do better in terms of how we're creating these, and then also if you're willing to do some cleanup. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the other piece of this that I know needs improvement are the response rates for cataloging parameters. So if it's new to your library, but it's an existing code in workflows, that's within 2 business days. That's where we want it to be, if not sooner. It's a fast turnaround if you provide us the information that we need in order to move the parameter forward. I know sometimes some of the information from what Rhonda tells me, and I notice this too sometimes when I used to do them, sometimes we go back and forth a little bit about the circ the circulation and the hold rules that you want set up, for example, for an item type, or maybe if there's multiple choices of home location codes for your items, which one you want to use. So I will say, I don't have a timeline, but we do recognize there's very much a need for an online form where if you want to put in a new cataloging parameter for your library, whether it's home location, item type, item categories 4 or 5, that we'll have a form that will guide you through it so that you provide us all that information. We recognize right now that it is difficult to remember everything when you're just sending an email. I do recognize and I take full responsibility for the improvement that needs to happen with the turnaround times for the brand new codes. So it's not just new to your library, but it's new to the whole system. I do prioritize new home locations and item types because I realize those have more of a direct effect on you and your patrons in terms of where the item is located, what its format is, how it checks out, if it fills holds. The item category 4 and 5s, though, are difficult for me to keep up with due to their numbers. So we're hoping if we can get some tighter criteria in place for when we make them, that'll help speed up the turnaround when we do decide to make them. If you ever have a super urgent need for a new cataloging parameter, whether it's home location, item type, and item category, please call us and we will be glad to push you to the front of the line. So just remember that's always an option if you need to. Let me take a look here in the chat. Yeah, it looks like Rhonda giving some suggestions about sending code lists in the Excel format. Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to show, actually. Rhonda and I are on the same wavelength. On our support site, we do have over here, well, you can get to it from a couple different places, probably over here under General Quick Link System Parameters. Notice towards the middle of the page, there's cataloging parameters. These are all of your complete code lists. And then if you want to see counts of what your library has assigned to your collection, if you have the Blue Cloud Analytics, I think you just need the basic level, right, Doug?
Yeah.
Right, Kendall? Okay, you don't need the PII level of BCA because these are just items. But if you have the BCA, the basic account level, you can run the counts, the item counts yourself for these various codes, but you can also submit a report request and we would be glad to do it for you if you prefer. So those are really the two best ways to see the complete lists and then see what you're using. Yeah, let me see here. Yeah, there is some kind of bug. Yeah, that's a good point, Rhonda. There is some kind of bug in here. Is it mostly Chrome, Kendall, that has this bug, or is it also Firefox? Sometimes these don't open when you click the link. So if you're having that trouble, please reach out to us and we'll make sure we can get these lists to you in another way. But yes, there's some kind of glitch in at least one browser.
Browser security is ever tightening and it makes it harder and harder to download things. And sometimes you have to open it in a new window and then it'll download. But if you just click the link, it won't download. I hate browsers.
Yeah, I just not sure why some things like that are harmless like this, it seems like it should open, but yeah. Okay, and then just a couple tidbits to finish up. We have come across the Wizard of Oz search glitch. I call it the glitch witch. We've come across one of these in RSA Cat. A big thank you to Peoria, Quincy, and Prairie Skies for reporting this to us. The Wizard of Oz, in some libraries, search profiles, not all of you, but some of you, doing an everything all field search in RSA Cat for Wizard of Oz, even though you have physical materials, books, movies, it doesn't return those physical materials. Notice here in the case of Brimfield's online catalog, first it tells you it can't get results. Then it says it's broadening to the e-content. And then it gives you a list of the e-content, but there's no physical items when clearly there should be some physical items of this, not just the e-content. We have fixed it for Peoria, Prairie Skies, and Quincy. Cersei Dynex fortunately has a script they tell us that they can run to fix it for the rest of our libraries. I just didn't want to pull the trigger though on that script because Kendall was still out of the office on vacation. And that always makes me a little bit nervous doing things on a wide scale when he's not here. So please be assured we are going to fix this. Notice here for Peoria, it works now as it should. It gives you the physical and the electronic formats, but we'll post to the listserv once this is fixed for everyone. So just beware that this is a known issue and we're working on the magic to get it fixed for all of you. Okay, any questions about that? No. Okay. Just a quick tidbit about the CMC I thought I would share, especially as directors and managers, knowing your collections well, and maybe you could think of some items that might fit this criteria. But we recently learned from the Cataloging Maintenance Center that they catalog not just items by Illinois authors and about Illinois topics, but also from some of the neighboring states, if it's in the borderline area with Illinois. I know they consider each item, the Cataloging Maintenance Center, on a case-by-case basis if it's a borderline item, but I know they've cataloged things from Hannibal, from Terre Haute. So just keep that in mind if there might be an item in your collection, you think, oh, this is maybe on a crummy brief record. Maybe I could have a nice full OCLC record for this, make it visible in WorldCat. Not that I'm going to interlibrary loan it necessarily, but just make it visible on a wider scale. So if these borderline items might be something that you have in your collection and you're interested in good full cataloging from the CMC, definitely reach out to them because they will consider your item case in point. Yeah, it is frustrating. Stephanie from Mount Hope Funks Grove says that she won't, it won't even let her open the cataloging parameters in a new tab. Yeah. Yeah, really the best way if that happens is to ask us to send you attachments to an email with those lists. Yeah. Okay, and then my last tidbit, you may come across, as you search workflows or the RSA CAT, you may come across some OCLC-like brief records. So there's a couple different ways to pick these out. Notice that the title's in all caps. It may or may not have the library mentioned in it, but this one does. Notice it has an OCLC number here in the key field 001. And if we look further down the record, there's a local note of 590 saying that this bibliographic record from OCLC, it was used basically as the foundation for a brief record. And what that means is a member has submitted an item to us in need of cataloging. In this case, it was a homeschool item in the Beardstown Memorial Library's collection. That item, they didn't want it to fill holds in OCLC WorldShare. So when a library doesn't want OCLC visible, we create a local bib record in workflows. Poor Jane on the RSA team has been hit hard with lots of brief records over the past several months, which is great because we want to make those items accessible to you and your patrons, but we need a better way to get these in there so that we can return them to you and they can start being used. I know at this point, Jane's a little on the fence with if this is truly faster or not, but we're still in the learning curve. But what Jane is doing is essentially finding the OCLC record for that item that the member needs us to catalog. Remember, they don't want it in OCLC WorldCat though. So she's basically stripping it down so that it can be in workflows as a brief record and avoid your holdings being updated in OCLC. So notice here, we make sure to give these OCLC-like brief records the temporary items format. So that means it will not be updated during our monthly process that updates your holdings in OCLC. So we just wanted to make you aware that you may see some strange looking records. And it's for these items that members don't want to put in WorldCat. And we're just trying to get a more efficient process for getting these cataloged in workflows rather than creating a local bib record line by line from scratch. Any questions about anything? Okay, well, thank you for listening. I know directors and managers don't typically handle the day-to-day, but we're just trying to keep you informed of some of the more relevant topics. But please do reach out if you think it over and have a question. Thanks again.
Thank you, Erica. It is obvious that you and your crew have been working a lot behind the scenes. And I am sure we only see a tiny bit of all the work that you do, but thank you again for explaining so much to us. So we are, it is time for our next poll. Are you lending Library of Things items to other libraries?
I thought it was interesting. We got several Library of Things questions, comments, submissions from everybody this time. So all right.
Ah, very clear winner there.
I'm not super surprised about that, just because a lot of these items are not things that easily go through delivery.
Yeah. Okay. So, discussion question, and we appreciate the submitter giving us a bit of a setup. So my library has several fragile multi-part materials, board games, kits, etc., that are available for local checkouts. We want these items to be returned to our library's staff only, so not placed in a Dropbox or returned to another library and put into transit. These items are labeled with these instructions. That's the background. So what's the question? What should we do when these items are returned to other libraries? What is a reasonable expectation for how the other libraries should handle these items if they are returned to them or placed in the Dropbox? And so overall, how does your library handle these situations? And do you have suggestions? So I will start off with myself for the submitter of this question. I sincerely hope that when that item, that board game, let's call it a board game, is returned, not handed to your staff, if it is returned to the Dropbox or if it is returned to a neighboring library, that you are fining those patrons. That is one person's opinion, my opinion, but that is actually what our library does. We slap a $10 fine on their card. And that fine, that $10, that is stated, that is labeled on the board game itself. And I'll tell you right now, it rarely happens. And for the record, yes, of course, we removed all such fines during the crazy COVID shutdown, absolutely no touching of anything phase. But under total normal circumstances, $10 fine. And let's hear from other folks. What does your library do? unmute, put it into chat. I would think that it is very reasonable to expect the other library, the neighboring library, if they suddenly get a board game that of course they are not familiar with or anything, I think it's reasonable. And I sincerely hope that every library in RSA would do the best they can to gather all items. If the item, if the board game is damaged in some way, to use rubber bands, to use perhaps a plastic bag in whatever works, and then to put that item, to get that library to the library, to the owning library. I think that's kind of the best you can ask for, just to help out your fellow library by protecting their items as much as possible. Thank you, Melissa. You mentioned that your park, the Alpha Park Public Library, does similar practices as the Dunlap Library. Any other comments or questions on this, folks? I know you're still out there. You haven't fallen asleep yet. Any RSA staff like to chime in with advice or suggestions?
I don't know how you stop people from returning things to other libraries' drop boxes.
The only thing really to do is to label them well, and then if you are, I'm trying not to use the word threat, but it's a statement. If you do this, if you put this in a Dropbox, you will be fined. Follow through with that fine. For a whole lot of the human race, money is a motivator or a demotivator. So use it to your advantage when appropriate. Okay, well, perhaps we'll move on to the next section. Okay, so we finally have a comment. So comment quick on that last topic from Dawn. So she's wondered the same thing about AV material placed in the Dropbox, so that are labeled not placed in Dropbox. Would the owning library like to know that it was dropped off in this manner? We allow our AV material to be returned in our Dropbox. That's a very good question.
I wonder if those were things that were borrowed and they came via hold. And so the patron just drops them back off at the library they checked them out from and isn't reading the packaging.
Well, in the original question, it's stuff that is local checkout only. So it's being checked out at the library with this rule. And I think instructions are being delivered at that point that, like, you can only return this here, but that doesn't stop people from going over to the next town over and dropping it in a book drop and running away and hoping that they won't get fined that way.
Okay, so next section, Kendall.
Yeah, and I'm going to try and fly through this as quickly as possible, as I will the next sections that I have to talk about. We talked last time about Web Reporter and Director Station getting turned off at the end of August, and we are still on track for that. Thank you very much to all of those of you who forwarded emails from various report servers to the help desk, as we asked you to do through the listserv. There are 50, 60, there might even be more now cases in the help desk from people doing that. So those of you that have also sent in a reports request or a reports case, just understand there are a lot of reports cases open right now, and Doug's working through them as quickly as possible. We are working to convert and then remove all of those workflows reports. And towards the end of the month, we'll be contacting people we didn't hear from. But by the end of August, we are turning off Web Reporter and we are turning off Director Station. They are going away. And just FYI, there are a couple of minor things that we cannot replicate in BCA that Web Reporter does. Most of the things that Web Reporter used to do that BCA wouldn't do have broken over the years, just due to data format changes. And again, these are systems that have not been updated in 12 years, so it's amazing that they work at all. We were going to do the firewall swap this month. Again, the building issue, and then also our collab partner had some timing issues, and so we weren't able to do that. We are targeting mid-September right now to do the firewall swap. We'll be asking everybody to send us lists of your current IP address or address ranges. We're going to clean out all the home IP addresses. There are literally thousands of home IP addresses, so we're going to just dump them all. So any of you who have staff accessing from home now, I think most people are back working in the libraries. That is your preferred methodology for working, please. But if you do have people still working from home, once we've cleared all the IPs out, feel free to open up a help desk case and say, hey, I am still working at home. Please add my new IP address in.
A question for you, Kendall.
Yeah.
For those people who use a VPN, do you still need a VPN and then remoting into one's desktop in one's library building? Do you still need their home IP address?
If you're using a VPN to remote into your desktop, it's your desktop that's actually talking to us, not your home computer.
That's
right? These are for people who are downloading workflows at home and setting it up and then connecting in, or they're taking their work computer, laptops generally, to their home and then just connecting to their home Wi-Fi. Problem is most people's home Wi-Fi addresses, the external IP address changes every 72 hours. For some, for larger providers that have lots and lots of IP addresses, maybe it doesn't change as often, but they do change. And so what happens is every time it changes, we get a ticket. Hey, I need a new IP address at my house, but we don't know what your old one was, so we can't remove it. And so we just have just oodles of IP addresses in the firewall. We have to wipe them out. So, you know, the day we'll let everybody know when that's going to happen. And then, you know, when it does, we'll be expecting people to say, hey, I can't get into the system. Here's my IP address, and we'll get it added. And then you'll be back on. So
excellent. Thank you.
All right.
Excellent. Next topic for discussion, and I would like to hear from some folks. Does your library have standing committees? And if the answer is yes, what are they? So you feel free to unmute. Feel free to type that into the chat. I'm getting some no's. And so Alyssa does remind us that yes, it's often a preference to sit at while in committee. We're mainly seeing most folks are saying no, that they don't have standing committees. And so also a finance, building and grounds. Oh, I'm sorry, a finance committee and then building and grounds committee. Executive committee, oh, safety committee. I like that. Excellent idea. A standing safety committee. A
celebrations committee.
That sounds like fun. So, okay. Thank you very much for those of you who participated.
For those of you that did answer what committee you have, if you could put in the chat the committee name and whether it's a staff or a board committee, I think that will help Elizabeth out.
Thank you, Kendall. Elizabeth, I hope you're able to see a lot of what was in the chat. And so
I am. So background is in 2000, I think it was 15, when I kind of tried to get rid of them. I got enormous pushback, but they don't actually do anything. They're just on the agenda as existing. So I am trying to take them off of the agenda as existing because they don't actually do anything. And I think this time I have board support to do that.
yeah.
Other libraries saying, no, we don't have standing committees, or we have this, or, you know, if when we need to work on something finance, we call a finance meeting and we show up and yeah.
Well, for the record, my library, which is a bit larger than yours, my library has no standing committees at all. Occasionally we will have an ad hoc committee, and that's occasionally.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
what we have typically done when they want to have a, you know, we do the whole open meetings act thing, and we meet like half an hour before the board meeting. So they have half an hour to do whatever they want to do, and then we're done.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's great that you're looking to streamline the process that your board takes. So I wish you luck with that, and feel free to make notes there about what folks have put in the chat, and you can always follow up with folks individually. So thanks for that discussion topic. Next, interstitial poll. Okay, do we have any results, Kendall?
We do.
Ah, wow, that's pretty significant. Almost half the people are mad. Well, such is life. Moving on.
All right. I'm going to fly through this as well. James has been with us for 10 years. Yay, James, he's vested in IMRF now. Lisa Shemensky has been with us for 4 years. Patty Quaren's been here for 3 years. Sarah Naslin for 2 years. Sarah's definitely been in COVID times longer, more than half of her time on staff. And I think Patty's about a month away from being in COVID times for half of her time and staff time in RSA, which just kind of gives us a marker for how long this has been going on, even though it simultaneously feels like no time at all and the entire existence of our lives. We already talked about RSA CAT being delayed very briefly. Basically what happened was Circe, after the rollout of the upgrade, they found a show-stopping bug with anybody who has EBSCO connectivity into the catalog. There are a lot of libraries out there that do. RSA does not, but just due to the sheer number of people who all of a sudden cannot connect to EBSCO. Actually, it's a two-pronged bug. EBSCO kind of did it too. It was a bug with, or a way something worked in enterprise that stopped working after EBSCO made an update. So Circe Dynix has committed their entire online catalog team to updating every of the thousands of catalog installations out there. They have to update every one that deals with EBSCO, and that has pushed them back on doing updates. So we've been delayed until fall. Tony was going to do a whole section on the RSA support website. We have decided, Tony and I, we are going to reschedule that probably for next week, if not the week after, and we will do it as its own session. So if you've got people who are very interested in the new RSA support site and you want to share your thoughts, be watching your email. There'll be an email come out to the listserv, and we'll do probably an hour or so, maybe 45 minutes to an hour on Zoom. We'll go a little deeper than we would have gone today, spend a little more time on it, which actually will be more helpful to Tony anyway. So please be on the lookout for that, because we are completely redesigning from scratch. So we don't need that. Share Illinois is ending on the 30th of October. This is something that has been around 25 years, 30 years. It is a very, very, and when I say informal, very, very informal grouping of all of the consortia in Northern Illinois, loading a barcode for each library and the other consortia in Illinois to allow people to place holds. These are the ones that when they come up and it says, what is your pickup library? It says Share Illinois. You may also see ones occasionally that say, what does it say? RSA, I forget, RSA NFP, I don't know. Anyway, Share Illinois is stopping officially. Rails is ending support for it on the 30th of October. RSA will continue to support any consortia that supports RSA libraries. So PrairieCat and RSA have already decided, hey, we're just going to indefinitely support each other's libraries, kind of informally, just between the two of us. This does not affect union listing holds placed inside of RSA. And so, like I said, consortium managers will decide. We're getting together to figure out, who is dropping it, because I think CCS and probably I think Swan was talking about dropping support for it as well, because it has caused some unintended issues. So just so you know, that is coming. Hopefully everybody got your OCLC contract renewal. They came via email this year. They did not come via snail mail. So they went out to whoever the POC's email was from the state library. If you did not renew your OCLC contract this year, please let us know ASAP. You can be a member of RSA without being a member of OCLC, but if you choose to drop your OCLC membership, your RSA fee will go up 10%, and you lose cataloging related services. And when I say that, basically what I mean is your data can't leave the RSA system anymore if you are not an OCLC member. So if you were to pull out of RSA and move into another system and you wanted an export of your records, we could not do that if you were not a member of OCLC, because we can't export OCLC records to you outside of our system. There are some other things. If you're considering it, or if you did do it, please let us know. We can give you the full list of things and ramifications to that decision. School delivery resumes on the 30th of October. That is the expected date. Robert and I were talking about it. If you have questions about school delivery, talk to Robert. There's his phone number, or you can email him, or you can send an email to the help desk of delivery, not the RSA help desk, the delivery help desk. RSA cannot help you with delivery. If you send us an email, we send it to Robert, because that is a Rails thing, not an RSA thing. I tell you all this because you should expect to both get and receive items and send items to schools starting in September. And as we've talked about maybe once, we moved. So here is just a very quick slideshow. In lieu of having an open house, because, well, we can't, this is where we moved. Now, if you look at this on a satellite, the old Rails facility is basically directly across I-74 from this building. This little bit right here is a solar shield. Starting at this blue pipe all the way over to this office, that's me in the corner. I'm waving at you, even though my car's not in the parking lot. And clearly I wasn't here when this picture was taken. I am still waving at you from that window. That is our entryway. This is the back of the building. This is the delivery area. You'll notice they have a nice big door right there. They can drive into the back. Here is a not to scale floor plan. It's labeled incorrectly. This is my office, not a visitor's office. So we have me, Anna, Erica, James. This is a shared collaboration space. This is a collaboration space. This is our now much smaller conference room. And then this is the staff office where we have 8 people all in this room here. And this whole area out here, which is actually bigger in real life than on this drawing, is the delivery space. And you would come in right there. Here it is from the sky. This is I-74 is right here, this very bottom corner. That's where I-74 is. Starting in the delivery area, as you can see, if you ever saw our old delivery area, this is way, way bigger, a little more spacious. So you can see there's a nice big open door there, our kind of wall of storage junk. And a nice plus, we can park not only all of our vans inside overnight and in inclement weather, but there's also still room, as you can see here, for when the statewide interconnect route moves to East Peoria. There's space to pull those vans in here as well, unload them inside, and then get them back out on the road. So that's all real nice. Starting from the front, this is our little entryway room. There's another door here. The pig is right here. You can't see the pig, but the pig is still here to welcome you. Piggy is always happy when people come. This door very soon will be locked. You will have to ring the doorbell to get in the building. We have random people off the street just walk in the building sometimes. So we'll all be happy when that door is locked all the time. Coming right in that door that will soon be locked, that's our lobby space. It is not as big as it looks in this picture. This is our little kitchen space. That's down the hallway. You can see way down the hallway, way down here. This is a very long hall. This room right past right there, that is the conference room, which is this room here. We have room for 12 people in the conference room, and there's the TV. So this is our conference room / training room. So when we said, hey, if we have a group meeting, we need to borrow somebody's conference area, is because we can only get 12 people in this room comfortably. We could get maybe 15 people in that room if they were friendly, but that's about it. This is both of our collaboration spaces. So we have one collaboration room with 2 workstations in it. We have one collaboration room that has 3 of these cubicle workstations in it. This is so that we can have team meetings where the team members can talk to each other. We have 8 people sharing a space, which means we're not going to want a whole lot of chit chat going on in that space because it's going to get overwhelming for people trying to work. If we have member services or cataloging doing a Zoom training, they're going to come in one of these collaboration spaces. They're going to close the door so that it's quiet, so that you're not hearing over the meeting all kinds of background noise. This is the shared staff office. As you can see, there are 8 desks in there. This is a not at all set up yet desk here in the corner, just to give you an idea of what the desks look like. This is the same room from the other end. You can see Tony is at work with his little hand right there. That's Tony. Say hi to Tony. That's all you get to see of Tony. That's all you need to know. Tony's waving via chat. This is Erica's office in the new building. These offices are smaller, in some cases a lot smaller than our old offices, but that's okay because we still have offices, which is better than working from my house. And finally, we do still have our giraffe that we won from Circe Dynex for me giving a snappy answer in a worldwide conference. And as you can see, he is staff member number 13. He is at the end of the hall guarding us. That is the end of the slideshow. So now you all know where we work.
Excellent. So we might have to table this discussion question. Actually, I'm going to make the semi-executive decision, Kendall, to table this discussion question to our next meeting so that we can actually have more discussion.
Absolutely.
We have had a number of our members leave us in the last a little bit. And so I really do think that it'd be better to discuss this next time.
Yeah, we can
So
push it. That's fine.
that's awesome. Where are we now?
That puts us at the strategic update, which I can tell you is we moved. Everything else we already talked about. I'll go right through it. There we go. And this is the last thing before the end of the meeting.
Yes, who has a bragging shout out to about what your library has been doing? Shout out to other libraries. Who wants to go first? I'm going to start picking on people. Shout out to the Alpha Park Public Library and Melissa for hosting an awesome live music event on Saturday, the 24th, which unfortunately got rained out through no fault of hers because she doesn't control the weather. But that was awesome. And it was extra awesome because my husband's band was playing. So that's what made it extra awesome. Who else wants to brag about what they have been doing? It's the summer. We've all been doing awesome things. Okay. I would like to do a bit of bragging. Kendall, will you allow me to share my screen?
Oh, hold on. Let me make you a co-host. You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. No.
There it goes.
No.
There's a cat. Now we see a cat.
I really didn't want to share them. It's like, I don't mind if you see the cat, but there. Do you see a flyer?
Yes, the Meet Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln.
Meet Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln. This is what my library is doing. We're collaborating with our local museum and we're bringing President and Mrs. Lincoln to the Wheels of Time Museum. So come on out. It'll be lots of fun. That's on Sunday. So that's me bragging about what my library is doing. Bring the kids.
I would like to thank Anna for being in charge for 2 weeks while I was gone and only bugging me once.
Wonderful. Congrats, Anna. Who else wants to give a shout out? Well, there better be a lot of shout outs at next month because this is definitely a little section of the meeting that's been kind of quiet the last couple meetings. And we all do really awesome things. So I'm sorry, that was my cat's tail going over my oh my gosh, you got to stop waving your tail, Mr. Darcy. Okay.
So we also do concerts at the Morton Public Library.
Yay.
And this year we got yard signs, and in past years, our average attendance was between 80 and 120. And this year our attendance was always over 100, usually around 180. So it increased significantly. We had 285 people for dueling pianos.
Wow.
Congrats.
You do that out like in your parking lot or the back space behind you?
In our garden, and we have food trucks every Friday in July.
Oh, that is cool.
That is cool. Okay, folks, if no one else wants to brag, which you're totally allowed to do, Section number 11 is other business. And I'm going to say no, there's no topic that we didn't hit because we have covered a lot. Once again, if you have ideas, if you have discussion questions, if you have crazy poll ideas that'll just make someone smile, please submit them. Kendall has sent the link to the online form. If you can't find that link and you just want to submit it, just, you know, send something to the help desk if you really, really can't find that link, but try to find the link. And someone will get it on the agenda. You can always email me as well.
Where's it?
So
There it is.
thank you. Thank you, Kendall. It is right there on the website. Okay, Mr. It's a good thing that the meeting's almost over because my cat is getting very, very antsy. I really think that it's time to talk about the next meeting. It'll be on the 3rd of November, which is the first Wednesday of the month. Please mark your calendars now. And I believe, Kendall, that did we decide that it was Zoom or did we not decide?
We
I mean,
decided the board
definitely
meeting.
Zoom.
The board meeting's definitely going to be Zoom.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I would love to tell you we could do one in person and schedule something, but
Yeah.
the way things are going, I don't feel real comfortable
No.
trying to set anything up at this point.
No, I think we should just plan on Zoom. Just plan on Zoom for the 3rd of November. Okay. Well, Kendall, I am going to officially adjourn this meeting. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us so long. For your friends and colleagues that had to leave early, I get it, but please watch the recording.
And we like everybody submitting ideas and sharing so much. That's why the meeting went long. So that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.